Chapter 2271. Looking at the backs of the Great Elder and the others, Madman had an indescribable bitterness in his heart. That's right. The other party was the ancestral dragon of the dragons. Back then, even the palace master died tragically in his hands. What could he do? Before the dragons appeared, he still felt that his strength was not bad, firmly sitting on the throne of the younger generation. However, it was only after the appearance of the dragon race that he realized how insignificant he was. He also hated himself. Why did he waste these thousands of years? Although his divine arts had greatly improved, his cultivation did not improve at all. If he could cultivate seriously in these thousands of years, not to mention the imperishable realm, he could at least reach the ninth heaven realm. Why did he have to wait until time passed to know how precious it was? All of a sudden, he had an urge to leave. These years of laziness had already become a habit. Perhaps only by going out and exploring could he regain his initial drive and drive. Elder Wei sized up Madman and suddenly laughed. Your road is still long, don't be depressed. Madman looked at Elder Wei, turned around and silently stepped onto the heaven stairway, walking up. Sky Dragon City. Outside the city above a forest, two figures stood facing the wind. It was Qin Feiyang and Hui. That's right. The two of them had opened the gate of time and space and directly returned to the northern region. Hui looked around and asked suspiciously, "Why did you run back to the northern region?" Qin Feiyang was silent, looking at the bustling Sky Dragon City. After a long time he sighed. So many people, so many old and weak women and children. If the city is really massacred, what a cruel scene it would be. Hui said, "So, you came back to prevent the ancestral dragon from massacring the city?" Although Shangguan Fenglan used us to temporarily resolve the crisis of Sky Dragon City, no one can guess the thoughts of the ancestral dragon. No one knows if he has forgotten about this matter? Qin Feiyang said. Then what do you plan to do? Hui asked. We definitely can't move the people of Sky Dragon City. Because once we do that, the ancestral dragon will know that we care about these people. At that time, he will not let us go. It will even affect the lives of the entire northern region. If things really develop to this point, then we will become sinners for all eternity. Qin Feiyang said. If we don't move, what else can we do to stop him? Hui frowned. Fight to the death. Let's go prepare the blood right away. If he really comes to massacre the city, we'll fight him to the death. A cold light flashed in Qin Feiyang's eyes. Fight to the death, Hui muttered to himself and sighed. This time, this ancestral dragon must have come prepared. If we want to kill him, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Qin Feiyang said. If he really wants to massacre the city, do we have a choice? Haha. Hui laughed heartily and nodded. All right, I'll go crazy with you to the end. Immediately prepare the blood. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and an altar quickly opened. Boom! However, at this moment, a terrifying aura descended upon Sky Dragon City. Qin Feiyang and Zhang Chun were shocked. They quickly looked up and saw 5 people standing in the sky above Sky Dragon City. The leader was the black-robed old man. The Great Elder, the Vice Pavilion Master, and Shangguan Fenglan stood behind him, their faces full of anxiety. No one knew what they were talking about. Su Mo watched coldly from the side. What's going on? The people in the city were also bewildered. Hui said in a deep voice, he won't really want to massacre the city, right? Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered. Milord, I beg you, please show mercy. Many of them are innocent. The Great Elder and the other 2 kept begging. But the black-robed old man remained indifferent, his expression revealing a ruthless coldness. What are you all still standing below for? He wants to massacre the city, why aren't you running? The Great Elder roared. What? Massacre the city? The entire city instantly burst into an uproar. Towards the Great Elder's actions, the black-robed old man was not angry, but his face was full of disdain. So what if these people knew? Could they escape from under his nose? Boom! With a wave of his hand, divine power rolled out, and a destructive aura instantly enveloped the entire Sky Dragon City. Run! The people in the city immediately panicked and fled out of the city in fear. Damn beast, he really wants to massacre the city. Hui clenched his fists tightly. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, it's too late to prepare the blood now. Then what should we do? Hui looked at him in a daze. What else can we do? Let's lure him here first. Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth and laughed. Old bastard, you're really haunting us. Wherever we go, you'll follow? The black-robed old man was stunned. The great elder and the other three were also stunned. Isn't this Qin Feiyang's voice? When did he return to the northern region? The five of them immediately looked towards the direction of the voice and saw two young men, with their hands behind their backs, standing above the forest outside the city, looking at them mockingly. The black-robed old man frowned. Swish. Following closely. He took a step forward, flew out of the city, and descended in front of Qin Feiyang. The great elder and the other three followed closely behind. Why did you come back? Shangguan Fenglan secretly said angrily. Hui transmitted. If we don't come back, who will protect the people of Sky Dragon City? With your current state, can you do it? Let's go immediately. The fate of Sky Dragon City has already been decided. Don't make any more meaningless sacrifices. Shangguan Fenglan secretly shouted. Hui secretly laughed. If we don't work hard to the end, how will we know if there will be a change? Fool! If not for the black-robed old man's presence, Shangguan Fenglan would have immediately stepped forward and slapped them. However, Sumo's eyes flashed with killing intent. Time and space teleportation divine artifact. Who gave it to you? Qin Batian. The black-robed old man looked at Qin Feiyang and asked. What? You still want to take it by force? Qin Feiyang said. Is there a need? Anyway, you're going to die soon. After you die, won't this divine artifact belong to me, the dragons? However, this venerable and Qin Batian can be considered old acquaintances, and I have never seen him use this divine artifact. This venerable is really curious. Where did you get this divine artifact? The black-robed old man said. Don't be too confident. Give me a day's time. I guarantee that you won't be able to return. Qin Feiyang said. A day's time? The black-robed old man was slightly taken aback and laughed. Do you want to open the slaughter domain? Unfortunately, this venerable will not give you this chance. Before his voice faded, the black-robed old man flashed and approached Qin Feiyang, and slapped out with his palm. Seeing that the situation was not good, Hui hurriedly stood in front of Qin Feiyang, and used all his strength to punch out. At the same time, Qin Feiyang also quickly retreated to the side. Boom! The fist and palm met in an instant. Hui spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. The skin on his arm was lacerated, and like a meteorite, he flew out horizontally. Rumble! Mountains continued to collapse one after another. In the end, Hui, accompanied by a painful howl, smashed into the ground and was submerged in the mud. So strong? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Hui, who was a half-step Undying Realm expert, actually had no power to fight back? Swish! The black-robed old man smiled contemptuously, and instantly landed in front of Qin Feiyang, pointing at Qin Feiyang's chest. It seemed to be a gentle point, but it caused Qin Feiyang to be seriously injured on the spot. His chest. A bloody hole appeared. His whole body like a cannonball smashed into a mountain. The earth cracked and the mountains collapsed. Billowing dust and smoke covered all directions. But the black-robed old man was stunned, staring at the blood floating in the void. Why wasn't it the purple gold dragon blood? What was going on? Whoosh! Qin Feiyang and Hui rushed out of the ground one after another, disheveled and extremely embarrassed. Too strong, we are not his opponent at all. Hui said in a deep voice. Yes. He still showed mercy, otherwise, we would have become corpses by now. Qin Feiyang whispered. Without opening the slaughter domain, it was impossible to fight with the ancestral dragon. The black-robed old man came back to his senses, looking at the bloody hole in Qin Feiyang's chest, frowned and said, Where is your bloodline power? It has disappeared. Qin Feiyang swallowed a life-divine pill and said, Disappeared? The black-robed old man raised his eyebrows. The purple gold dragon blood has disappeared. And for you dragons, I am no longer valuable. Can you let me go now? Qin Feiyang said. The black-robed old man frowned, saying, Without the purple gold dragon blood, you are indeed worthless in the eyes of us dragons. But, do you think this lord is stupid? Speaking of this, A trace of ridicule crept up in the black-robed old man's eyes. Qin Feiyong's heart trembled. Do you think this lord doesn't know that Qin Badian has already developed a pill that can conceal the power of the bloodline? The black-robed old man sneered. Qin Feiyong sighed deeply and said, "It seems that you are not easy to fool. Your little tricks in front of this lord are just a child's game. I won't hide it from you." Before this lord came to the northern region, Lord Dragon Sovereign had instructed me that I don't need you alive. I can even bring your corpse back. The black-robed old man said. Qin Feiyong said, "Then it seems that I am dead for sure today?" "Yes." The black-robed old man nodded. "Then we'll wait and see." Qin Feiyong grinned, grabbed Hui and prepared to enter the castle. "This lord knows that you have a spatial divine object, but since this lord dares to say so, I am not afraid of you hiding. The most important thing is that if you hide, the people of Sky Dragon City will die because of you." The black-robed old man laughed playfully. "Haha, do you think I care about their life and death?" Qin Feiyong laughed. "This lord believes that you will care because you are the descendant of Qin Badian. The people of the Qin clan like to bemoan the state of the universe and pity the fate of mankind. They think that they are great, but in fact they are very stupid. They are just a group of lowly ants. What is there to care about?" The black-robed old man said disdainfully. "How funny. Even if I am the descendant of Qin Badian, do I have to be like him? To be honest, I am actually very disgusted by what my ancestor did. What is the use of being merciful? In my understanding, being merciful to others is being cruel to oneself. Although I am his descendant, if you really think so, then you are gravely mistaken. Because I once slaughtered an entire continent of living beings." Qin Feiyong smiled coldly. "Is that so?" The black-robed old man was surprised. Chapter 2272. Do you want me to prove it to you? Qin Feiyong said. "Sure. If you go and slaughter Sky Dragon City now, I will believe you." The black-robed old man crossed his arms in front of his chest with a mocking look on his face. Qin Feiyong looked cold on the surface, but he was furious in his heart. Even if he pretended to be indifferent, he would not be able to stop the ancestral dragon from slaughtering Sky Dragon City. What could he do to get rid of this danger? Did he really have to follow the ancestral dragon to the dragons? Who was the one who said that he had slaughtered an entire continent? Why don't you do it now? The black-robed old man mocked. No. Qin Feiyong made up his mind. If this continued, it would become more obvious that he cared about everyone. Then you better watch carefully. Qin Feiyong smiled coldly as a surge of divine power surged out like a tide towards Sky Dragon City. He really did it? The black-robed old man was surprised. Looking at Qin Feiyong's expression again, there was indeed not the slightest bit of pity. Could it be that his second son was really different from Qin Badian? However, at the same time, the Vice Pavilion Master and the other two Vice Pavilion Masters all made their moves at the same time. Boom! The divine power was destroyed on the spot. The black-robed old man turned around and stared at the three of them. "What are you doing?" "Lord, the heavens are merciful. Please be merciful and let them go." The three of them knelt in the air and begged. As for Suemo, he did not say a word from start to finish. Courting death. The black-robed old man's eyes flashed with hostility as he charged towards the three Vice Pavilion Masters with an overwhelming aura. Puff! The three of them vomited blood on the spot as they were sent flying, their faces pale. "Aren't they just adding to the chaos?" Qin Feiyong muttered. Hui thought, "They are saving the people of Sky Dragon City. How is this adding to the chaos? Do you think you can save them? Let me tell you, not only will you not be able to save Sky Dragon City, you will also implicate Nine Heavens Palace and Treasure Pavilion. I attacked Sky Dragon City because I did not want to make any more sacrifices." Qin Feiyong transmitted his voice. "I know. But I know Great Elder and the others too well. They won't just sit by and watch even if it means risking their lives." Hui sighed. Qin Feiyong fell silent. Was there really no way to stop it? "My lord, I am willing to die for them. I only beg you to let them go." Shangguan Fenglan exclaimed. She blamed herself. If she hadn't been impulsive and killed those 10 people, if she hadn't been possessed and suggested this idea to the First Elder, none of this would have happened. Die for them? The black-robed elder lowered his head and looked at Shangguan Fenglan, who was kneeling in the void. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Do you really care about them that much? As the law enforcement hall master of Nine Heavens Palace, I have the duty and responsibility to protect everyone. I'm not afraid of death. I just have a guilty conscience," Shangguan Fenglan said. "Haha, the more you care, the more I want to kill you. And unfortunately, I have to tell you, your actions have already angered me. So not only Sky Dragon City, your Nine Heavens Palace and Treasure Pavilion will also face destruction." The black-robed elder raised his head and laughed, his entire body emitting a monstrous evil aura. "What?" Shangguan Fenglan, Great Elder, and Vice Pavilion Master trembled. Hui also clenched his fists tightly. What Qin Feiyong was worried about really happened. The Northern Region General Pavilion is also in Sky Dragon City, right? Then let's start with Sky Dragon City and Treasure Pavilion. Then Nine Heavens Palace. Finally, the various branches in the entire Northern Region. From now on, the Northern Region will no longer have Nine Heavens Palace and Treasure Pavilion. The black-robed elder laughed sinisterly, his aura surging out. At this moment, whether it was the Great Elder and the other two or Qin Feiyong and Shangguan Fenglan, they all fell into deep despair. Whoosh! Suddenly, Hui exhaled a long breath and said, "Brother Qin, promise me one thing." Qin Feiyong looked at him suspiciously. "Take the Great Elder and leave immediately. After the killing zone opens, you must help me kill this bastard. Also, help me take care of the Fire Lotus," Hui said, as if he had made an important decision. There was a trace of determination in his eyes. "What do you want to do?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. "Don't ask anything. Just remember what I said and leave now," Hui roared. His half-step undying aura erupted without holding back. The black-robed elder looked at Hui. "I'd rather die than live in dishonor," Hui said word by word. His fire god power roared out, melting the world. The black-robed elder's eyes were filled with disdain. He grabbed at the air, and the space around Hui instantly shattered. Hui's face also twisted. It was as if an invisible hand was holding him tightly. His body was already deformed, and blood spurted out from all the pores on his body. "Although I am not your opponent, at least I can seriously injure you. The North Region is not a place where you can behave atrociously," Hui roared, and a destructive aura rushed out of his body. "What? Self-destruct?" Qin Feiyong and the others' faces changed. Hui actually chose to self-destruct his body? The black-robed elder was also shocked. The self-destruction of a half-step undying was no joke. It was enough to destroy half of the North Region. He's really crazy. Suemo was also panicking. Life is short, why choose to self-destruct? At this moment, a hoarse voice sounded in the sky. Everyone immediately looked up and saw the void above. Unknowingly, an old man and a young man appeared. The old man's body was stooped, wearing tattered clothes, and his hair was messy like a beggar. Next to him was a beautiful woman, wearing snow-white clothes, elegant and refined. Qin Feiyong looked at the two in a daze. That's right. The old man and the young man were Lin Yi and the sloppy old man. Lin Yi supported the sloppy old man, looked at Qin Feiyong, and said with a smile, "Brother Feiyong, I didn't expect us to meet again so soon." Qin Feiyong said, "Why are you here?" "We happened to pass by." Lin Yi said. "Happened to pass by?" Qin Feiyong was stunned, then hurriedly looked at Hui and shouted, "Stop, stop!" Hui heard the words and hurriedly stopped self-destructing. There was a glimmer of hope in his eyes. Lin Yi's master could even defeat Long Zun's avatar. It was definitely more than enough to deal with Ancestral Dragon. Sumo's face was full of suspicion. Who are these two people? The sloppy old man glanced at Qin Feiyong and the others, then looked at the black-robed elder and said, "You are a bit too much." The black-robed elder said in a deep voice, "Mind your own business. Do you think this old man has ever cared about your dragon race? But this time is different. You plan to massacre the city. How can I sit back and do nothing about such a heinous thing?" The sloppy old man laughed hoarsely. The black-robed elder stared at the sloppy old man. He seemed to be disgusted with the sloppy old man, but there was also a trace of fear. Lin Yi transmitted her voice, "Brother Feiyong, you and Brother Hui leave quickly." Leave? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Yes. With Master here, Ancestral Dragon does not dare to massacre the city. But Master will not intervene in the grievances between you and dragons, so if you don't take the opportunity to slip away now, your situation may be very bad later. Lin Yi secretly said. Thank you. Qin Feiyang secretly thanked her, then pulled Hua Yi, activated the concealment technique, took out the mystic moon jade pendant, and escaped without looking back. The black-robed elder saw Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi suddenly disappear, and immediately released his divine sense. But there was nothing in his divine sense. Celestial Divine Stone. The black-robed elder's eyes sank, and his divine power surged out in all directions. The role of Celestial Divine Stone was only to conceal one's aura and block the search of divine sense. Couldn't really make a person disappear. Therefore, a large-scale attack like this could make the other party reveal their true form. However, just as the black-robed elder released his divine power, the sloppy old man raised his arm and gently pressed down. Boom! The black-robed elder's divine power dissipated instantly. Don't go too far. The black-robed elder roared. The sloppy old man said, if you do this, you will hurt the innocent, so this old man will not allow it. Although his tone was flat, there was a majesty that couldn't be disobeyed. Do you have to go against me, the dragons? The black-robed elder's face sank. No. This old man will not intervene in the matter between you dragons and Qin Feiyang. Even if you kill him, it has nothing to do with this old man. However, this old man can't tolerate hurting the innocent creatures of the North region. As the sloppy old man finished speaking, his old arm gently pressed down again. Boom! A formless aura burst out like a flood that had just broken through a dam. Puff! The black-robed elder's body shook, and he immediately spat out a mouthful of old blood. His face instantly turned pale. This? The great elder and the others were stunned. With a wave of his hand, he severely injured the ancestral dragon of the Black Dragon clan. This strength is too terrifying. I hope this time's bloodshed can make you remember. In the future, in the North region, don't mess around like today. After the sloppy old man finished speaking, he turned to look at Lin Yi and smiled. Girl, let's go. Okay. Lin Yi nodded, supporting the sloppy old man. They stepped into the air step by step and gradually disappeared into the horizon. They were like two passers-by coming and going quickly. As for Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi, they had already disappeared without a trace. Chapter 2273. The sky above the forest was dead silent. The black-robed elder looked in the direction where the master and disciple left, his face extremely gloomy. Next to him, the great elder, the vice pavilion master, Shangguan Fenglan, and Suemo were all terrified. They were afraid that the black-robed elder would vent his anger on them. After a long time, the black-robed elder retracted his gaze and turned to scan Sky Dragon City. The great elder and the other two became nervous again. They prayed silently in their hearts that the city would not be massacred. They did not want to be sinners. A moment later, the black-robed elder finally looked away, looked up at the great elder and the other three, and said, Your North Region and East Tomb, continue to arrest Qin Feiyang for me. Yes. The four responded respectfully. Whoosh! Immediately after, the black-robed elder left alone without saying a word. The great elder and the other two secretly heaved a sigh of relief. They had finally escaped this calamity. The vice pavilion master looked at the north region where the black-robed elder was and asked loudly, Sir, where are you going? But the black-robed elder acted as if he did not hear and quickly disappeared from the sight of the four. What is he doing? Shangguan Fenglan looked at the great elder and the vice pavilion master suspiciously. Who knows? The great elder snorted, looked at the vice pavilion master and said, Next, I will have to trouble your treasure pavilion to appease the people of Sky Dragon City. It's a small matter. The vice pavilion master smiled, turned to look at Suemo, and said, Brother Su, you are so busy. How do you have time to come to our north region to play? I don't have time to play. Suemo sighed deeply and said, I came to the north region to investigate Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi. Investigate them? The great elder and the other two looked at each other, and an imperceptible light flashed in their eyes. Shangguan Fenglan asked suspiciously, Why do you want to investigate them? Suemo said in a deep voice, they killed my sister and brother-in-law in Skyluo City. And my nephew. What? The three were stunned. As expected, they had gotten into big trouble again. Brother Su, if I remember correctly, your sister seems to be the law enforcement hallmaster of Skycloud Mountain? The Great Elder said. Suemo nodded. The Great Elder shook his head and said, truly two malefic stars, bringing disaster wherever they go. Suemo was stunned and asked, what do you mean? I won't hide it from Brother Su. This Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi have given us quite a bit of trouble. The Grand Elder sighed. I would like to hear the details. Suemo said. First Elder was silent for a while. Then he turned to look at Shangguan Fenglan and said, Fenglan, send a message to your sister and ask her to arrange a banquet at Yulan Tower immediately. I want to entertain Brother Su well. All right. Shangguan Fenglan nodded. The First Elder said, Brother Su, this is not the place to talk. When we get to Yulan Tower, this old man will tell you the details. All right. Suemo smiled. Sky Dragon City, south side. In the air above a desolate mountain, Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi stood in the air, their hands on their knees. They were sweating profusely and gasping for breath. He shouldn't have chased after us, right? Hua Yi turned to look at the void behind him. With his speed, if he were to chase after us, he would have already caught up to us. Let's go down and take a rest. Qin Feiyang pointed to a bare mountain peak below. Hua Yi nodded. Along the way, the two of them had been running for their lives and were exhausted. Landing on the mountain peak, the two of them leaned against a rock, wiping the sweat from their foreheads. Looking at the sky, their faces were full of fear. After a long while, they finally regained their senses. Hua Yi let out a long breath and said with a smile, when I self-destructed, I really thought I was going to die. You gave me a fright too. I really admire your courage. You actually dared to self-destruct your body without the slightest hesitation. Qin Feiyang said. In that situation, was there any other way besides self-destructing? Hua Yi sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and patted Hua Yi's shoulder, saying, one who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune later. Nonsense. Hua Yi pursed his lips. This is called speaking from experience. How is it nonsense? Believe me, the two of us will definitely have a great opportunity. Qin Feiyang smiled. Hua Yi glanced at him and said indifferently, you can slowly comfort yourself. I'll take a nap first. Rest? It seemed that he was really scared. Qin Feiyang said, take a nap later, answer my question first. Hua Yi's eyes flashed slightly, frowning, aren't you annoying? After saying that, he directly closed his eyes. Qin Feiyang said, this question concerns me. Hua Yi turned a deaf ear. Qin Feiyang also ignored him and said, why did you say that you would take care of the fire lotus when you self-destructed? Hua Yi's eyelids moved, but his expression did not change. Do you know the fire lotus? And you know the identity of the fire lotus? Did you approach me for the fire lotus? Qin Feiyang threw out 3 questions. Hua Yi was still indifferent. Qin Feiyang said, if you don't answer, I'll take it as a yes? Up to you. Hua Yi said impatiently. Qin Feiyang glanced at him, then raised his head to look at the sky, his eyes flashing with a hint of contemplation. Suddenly, he turned his head to look at Hua Yi, his eyes flashing as he got up and entered the castle. Fire Lotus was still busy in the hall. She raised her head to look at Qin Feiyang and smiled. You're done. I'll go check the pill scripture first, and come out later to help you organize it, Qin Feiyang said. All right. Fire Lotus nodded. Looking at such an obedient Fire Lotus, Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed with a hint of hesitation. But in the end, he sighed inwardly and entered the cultivation room, tightly closing the stone door. Why did you close the door? Fire Lotus looked at the stone door suspiciously, but did not think too much about it. Cultivation room. Qin Feiyang sat in front of the desk, his head lowered, his eyes flickering. A moment passed. He took a deep breath and took out the image crystal. Wang. After a while, Shangguan Fenglan's image appeared. When Shangguan Fenglan saw Qin Feiyang, she immediately revealed a grateful expression and said, this time I really have to thank you. Qin Feiyang was startled and laughed. Hearing you say this, it seems that Sky Dragon City has avoided this calamity. It's all thanks to you, Shangguan Fenglan said. Now that she recalled the scene of ancestral dragon getting angry, she couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. I didn't do anything. The people I really have to thank are Yi and her master, Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan said regretfully, I also want to thank them in person, but unfortunately I don't have the chance. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Shangguan Fenglan said. Not long after you left, they also left. What about ancestral dragon? Qin Feiyang asked. I don't know where he went. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head. I don't know where he went. Qin Feiyang frowned slightly. But what is certain is that he won't give up just like that. You must be careful, Shangguan Fenglan warned. Qin Feiyang nodded. Now let's talk about Suemo. Why did you kill his sister? Do you know that he is the great elder of Heavenly Cloud Mountain? Shangguan Fenglan said angrily. I know. But so what? Don't tell me that just because of their identity and status we have to stand there and take a beating? Qin Feiyang said. What is going on? Shangguan Fenglan frowned. Chapter 2274. It's actually very simple. Qin Feiyang explained the situation in detail. So that's how it is. After listening, Shangguan Fenglan nodded in realization. Qin Feiyang said, then tell me now. If it were you, would you tolerate it? It's not a big deal. Why do you have to make such a fuss? Shangguan Fenglan looked at him helplessly. This is not a big deal. Well, I'm narrow-minded. Qin Feiyang was speechless. You guys are impulsive. Tianyun Mountain is the ruler of Dongling. Offending them won't do you any good. Shangguan Fenglan sighed. It doesn't matter. Qin Feiyang shrugged. I'm not worried, but the eunuch is. Okay, I'm meddling in other people's business. Shangguan Fenglan said discontentedly. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and asked, where is Suemo now? The first elder and the deputy pavilion master are receiving him in Yulan building. But don't worry, the first elder and the others know what to say and what not to say, Shangguan Fenglan said. From what you said, it seems that I have some secrets that I can't let others know. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. The power of your bloodline has been exposed, and your identity has been exposed. You really have no secrets. However, you definitely can't let Suemo know about your relationship with us, Shangguan Fenglan said. That's true. Now he hates me and Hui to the bone. If he knows about our relationship with you, I'm afraid he will secretly inform the dragons. Qin Feiyang nodded. So no matter how much trouble you encounter in Dongling or how much trouble you cause, we won't care, Shangguan Fenglan said. Qin Feiyang said, not only can you not care, but you also have to hunt us down with Tianyun Mountain. Hunt you down together? Shangguan Fenglan was stunned and speechless. I can't help but wonder if you have masochism. You feel uncomfortable not being hunted down for a day. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. Who wants to be hunted down every day? Isn't this specially made for dragons to see? Wasn't it because they didn't want to implicate Nine Heavens Palace and the Treasure Pavilion? He actually said that he was masochistic. That was too much. Shangguan Fenglan waved her hand and said with a smile, okay. I won't joke around. Is there anything else? If not, I have to go back to work. Wait a moment. What was Grand Elder's reaction when he found out about my relationship with Yi? Qin Feiyang asked curiously. What reaction? Shangguan Fenglan thought for a moment and said, let me put it this way. If you were in front of him at that time, he would definitely beat you up. Then it's fortunate that I wasn't in front of him. Qin Feiyang patted his chest and said. Shangguan Fenglan shook her head and laughed in spite of herself. But I believe that after this incident, the first elder will not fuss about it anymore. That's good. Qin Feiyang nodded and looked at Shangguan Fenglan. He seemed to be hesitating about something. What happened? Shangguan Fenglan looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang said, actually, I'm sending you a voice transmission this time because of another matter. What is it? Shangguan Fenglan was puzzled. Qin Feiyang frowned. You're a big man. Being so wishy-washy is not like your character. Shangguan Fenglan said. Qin Feiyang exhaled and said, I want to know what our Ninth Heaven Palace Master looks like. Shangguan Fenglan was surprised. Qin Feiyong hurriedly said, "Don't misunderstand. I'm just suddenly curious. Based on my understanding of you, if you're just curious, you won't be so hesitant. I don't like to be fooled. I want to know the real reason." Shangguan Fenglan said, "Can't you just tell me first? I'm begging you." Qin Feiyong put his palms together and looked at Shangguan Fenglan pleadingly. "You're really unpredictable when it comes to doing things." Shangguan Fenglan shook her head helplessly. With a wave of her hand, a woman's shadow gradually condensed. "What?" Qin Feiyong looked at the woman's face. It was as if he was struck by lightning. The woman was about 20 years old. She had an excellent figure and a small waist. Her two slender legs were extremely tall. Her delicate facial features were flawless. Her black hair was like a waterfall. Especially those eyes, they were like two gemstones, bright and lively. She was wearing a long golden silk dress. There was an ethereal air in her nobility. She was like a fairy. No one could raise the slightest blasphemous thought. But the most eye-catching thing was between her eyebrows. In the middle of her eyebrows, there was a fire lotus pattern. "What's wrong with you?" Looking at Qin Feiyong's reaction, Shangguan Fenglan was quite surprised. However, Qin Feiyong did not seem to hear it. His eyes kept scanning the woman's face and the fire lotus pattern between her eyebrows. This face, this figure. And that fire lotus pattern was exactly the same as the fire lotus. In other words, just as he had guessed before, Fire Lotus was the palace master of Nine Heavens Palace. In fact, he had suspected that Fire Lotus was from Nine Heavens Palace, because the pattern between Fire Lotus's eyebrows was exactly the same as the symbol of Nine Heavens Palace. But he never thought that Fire Lotus was actually the palace master of Nine Heavens Palace. It was also because he had never thought so that he had never inquired about the appearance of the palace master of Nine Heavens Palace. Just before, Huiyi's silence suddenly reminded him of the pattern between Fire Lotus's eyebrows. Coupled with Huiyi's abnormal behavior, he could not help but begin to suspect in this regard. This was also where he had been hesitating, because once he confirmed the identity of Fire Lotus, he might lose this sister. After being together for so long, Fire Lotus had become an inseparable part of his life. That was his family. Moreover, this matter was also very inconceivable. A person who had been dead for thousands of years was actually still alive in this world. How shocking was this? So, he had been hesitating. Should he ask Shangguan Fenglan? But in the end, in order to solve the doubts in his heart, and for the sake of Fire Lotus, he chose to find out the truth. And all the doubts in the past were easily solved. For example, why was Fire Lotus in the land of the undead? This was because she had originally died in the land of the undead. And that fire dragon. Why did he say that sending Fire Lotus to Longzun was a great merit? Because at that time it was Fire Lotus who had tried her best to protect the ancestor. And finally Huiyi. Because he had seen through Fire Lotus's identity, he had come to approach him. In other words, on the surface, Huiyi was fooling around with him, but in reality, he was secretly protecting Fire Lotus. Then the truth of Huiyi's identity was naturally revealed. Nine Heavens Palace's Vice Palace Master. Qin Feiyong, say something, is there a problem? Don't scare me. Seeing Qin Feiyong standing there in a daze and not responding for a long time, Shangguan Fenglan couldn't help but become anxious. Qin Feiyong quivered and came back to his senses. He quickly shook his head and said, It's nothing. I just saw that the palace master is actually so young. I'm a little surprised." "Are you a pig?" Shangguan Fenglan rolled her eyes. Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned and said unhappily, "You are also a reputable figure. How can you scold people? Did I say something wrong? People who have reached our cultivation level, as long as they are willing, can maintain their youthful appearance for the rest of their lives." Shangguan Fenglan said. That's true. Qin Feiyong smiled embarrassedly. Mobile version of the website. Chapter 2275. Shangguan Fenglan said, "Alright, I won't talk nonsense with you, I'm going back to work." "Alright." Qin Feiyong nodded. Shangguan Fenglan's shadow immediately disappeared. The palace master's shadow also disappeared. Qin Feiyong put away the image crystal, lowered his head and gently knocked on the table, as if he was thinking about something. Suddenly, a smile crept onto his face as he got up and walked towards the stone door. Back then, in order to save his ancestor, Fire Lotus had died in the hands of the ancestral dragon of the Black Dragon clan. And now by chance he had saved Fire Lotus again. This should be the so-called fate. Opening the stone door, Qin Feiyong entered the hall and walked to Fire Lotus's side. "What are you doing so mysteriously?" Fire Lotus raised her head and looked at him suspiciously. "What can I do?" Qin Feiyong smiled slightly, squatted on the ground, grabbed a Qinkuan bag and asked, "How is it? The harvest this time is not bad. Other than the treasury, there is also a large amount of wealth in the city lord couple's Qinkuan ring." Fire Lotus laughed. "What I am most concerned about is how many soul stones they have." Qin Feiyong asked. Fire Lotus said, "The 2 soul stones added together are more than 1 billion. "So much?" Qin Feiyong was surprised. After all, one is the city lord of Sky Dragon City, and the other is the hallmaster of Sky Cloud Mountain Law Enforcement Hall. It is normal for them to have more than 1 billion soul stones. Needless to say about the divine crystals, the 2's divine crystals added together are tens of billions. As for the soul stones in the treasury, I have not counted them yet," Fire Lotus said. "Then we've really become rich overnight." Qin Feiyong laughed. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyong checked the Qinkuan bag in his hand. Most of it was filled with herbs. He looked up at Hua Yi and smiled casually. "Girl, I suddenly want to ask you a question." "What question?" Fire Lotus was suspicious. I'm just saying if your status and position in the northern region is really very high, will you still recognize me as your big brother?" Qin Feiyong asked as he tidied up his Qinkuan bag. Fire Lotus raised her head to look at Qin Feiyong, a trace of bewilderment flashing in her eyes. However, this trace of bewilderment quickly dissipated as she smiled. "Why are you suddenly asking this? Answer me first." Qin Feiyong smiled. "Of course, no matter who I am, you will always be my Qin Dage," Fire Lotus said without hesitation. Hearing this, Qin Feiyong put down the Qinkuan bag in his hand and looked up at Fire Lotus, saying, "Then do you want to know your identity?" "Of course." Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment and said, "Actually, I've already investigated your identity." "What?" The bewilderment in Fire Lotus's eyes appeared once more, with an additional trace of undetectable panic. Qin Feiyong said, "You're the palace master of 9 Heavens Palace." Yes. After thinking about it, he decided to tell Fire Lotus the truth. After all, this was Fire Lotus's background and she had the right to know. "Palace Master of 9 Heavens Palace? You're not joking, right? How did you find out?" Fire Lotus asked with a smile, trying her best to hide the panic in her heart. "Just now, I sent a message to Shangguan Fenglan and asked her to tell me what the Palace Master looked like. In the end it was exactly the same as you," Qin Feiyong said. "No way." Fire Lotus was in disbelief. "I'm not lying to you. Even the Fire Lotus pattern on your foreheads is exactly the same," Qin Feiyong said. Fire Lotus's eyes were dull as she shook her head and said, "I still find it hard to accept. This is too unbelievable. And I know Hua Yi's identity. He's the Vice Palace Master of 9 Heavens Palace. He approached me to protect you." Qin Feiyong smiled. "Hui is the Vice Palace Master? Protect me. Let me digest this first." Fire Lotus waved her hand, her face full of disbelief. "I know it's hard for you to accept right now, but your identity is definitely true. Why don't you go back to 9 Heavens Palace now? In a familiar place in front of familiar people, you might be able to recover your lost memories," Qin Feiyong said. "What about you?" Fire Lotus hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyong and asked. Qin Feiyong said, "I'm definitely going to find the demon ancestor in Dongzhengyang, then enter the divine land. Then I'll go with you." Fire Lotus said, "You're going with me?" Qin Feiyong frowned. "Do you think I'm troublesome?" Fire Lotus asked nervously. No. If I didn't know your identity, I would have taken you with me. But I hope you can go to 9 Heavens Palace to recover your memories," Qin Feiyong said. "It's not like I haven't been to 9 Heavens Palace. Back then, I was also a disciple of Nine Heavens Palace. If I could really recover my memories in Nine Heavens Palace, I would have recovered them long ago. But after so long I can't remember anything. So I don't think it's useful to go back to Nine Heavens Palace, Fire Lotus said. Is it because you haven't come into contact with anything related to you? For example, the courtyard in the depths of Nine Heavens Palace. That's where you used to live. If you can go back there, you might be able to recover your memories. And the Great Elder and the others, they know your past. As long as you're willing to go back, they'll definitely do their best to help you recover your memories. Qin Feiyong smiled. Fire Lotus said unhappily, "You're chasing me away. Silly girl. How can I bear to chase you away? But I really hope that you can recover your memories and no longer be a blank person." Qin Feiyong sighed. Don't say it, don't say it. I won't go back anyway. Besides, if I'm really the palace master of Nine Heavens Palace, I can't go back now. Because the ancestral dragon of the Black Dragon race is in the northern region. If he knows that I'm still alive, not only will I be in danger, Nine Heavens Palace will also be implicated, Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyong was slightly taken aback. After thinking about it, he nodded. That makes sense. Fire Lotus smiled. Actually, I'm not in a hurry right now. Let nature take its course. All right. As you wish. Qin Feiyong rubbed Fire Lotus's head with a doting expression. He didn't feel restrained or distant because of Fire Lotus's identity. Fire Lotus also enjoyed this doting. Time flew by. The next day early morning, Qin Feiyong appeared on the mountain peak. Looking at Hui, who had slept on the mountain peak for an entire night, Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Hui glared at him, then stood up and stretched. He smiled and said, after waking up I feel so refreshed. Then, he turned to Qin Feiyong and asked, are we going to Dongling now? I think that you should return to Nine Heavens Palace to take charge of the situation. Don't throw everything to the Great Elder and the others. They're also quite tired. Qin Feiyong sighed. What do you mean? I don't understand. Hui shook his head. Fine. Since you want to continue acting dumb, I'll leave this window paper for you. Qin Feiyong smiled and took out the space-time gate. Hui looked at Qin Feiyong and raised his eyebrows. Clang! As Qin Feiyong's god force poured into the space-time gate, accompanied by a deafening sound, the space-time gate quickly recovered and the two of them walked in. Chapter 2276. Dongling. After Heavenly Cloud Mountain and Treasure Pavilion issued the arrest warrant, everyone was looking for Qin Feiyong and Hui everywhere. Of course, they didn't dare to hope to take the heads of Qin Feiyong and Hui. After all, Hui's cultivation had long been public. He was a half-step Undying Realm expert. Who would dare to provoke an expert of this level? So, everyone only had one goal, which was to find their whereabouts. As long as they found their whereabouts and reported it to Heavenly Cloud Mountain and Treasure Pavilion, they would be able to obtain a pinnacle divine artifact. Clang! Suddenly, a deafening sound rang out in the sky above Tianluo City. What's that? Everyone looked up in surprise and saw a huge stone door appear in the sky. It's a divine artifact. What's going on? Why would a divine artifact appear? Grab it! Everyone rushed towards the stone door as if they had gone crazy. They all thought that a divine artifact had appeared. However, at the next moment, two young men walked out of the stone door. Immediately, everyone stopped in the air, their eyes filled with horror, because the people who came out were Qin Feiyong and Hui. Hui's powerful cultivation intimidated everyone present. It's them. Quickly report to Treasure Pavilion and Heavenly Cloud Mountain. Everyone scrambled towards Heavenly Cloud Mountain and the Treasure Pavilion. Qin Feiyong put away the space-time gate and glanced at the crowd below. Why do I feel like we're two pieces of cake in their eyes? Isn't that nonsense? If it weren't for my strength, I'm afraid they would have already swarmed us. Hui shook his head. These two are really arrogant. Yeah, they know that Treasure Pavilion and Heavenly Cloud Mountain are looking for them, but they still came to Tianluo City so brazenly. They should at least cover it up. Do they really think that no one in Dongling can subdue them? But then again, they're really charming. And they're also quite handsome. Below, there was a woman in purple standing in the crowd. She looked up at Qin Feiyong and Hui. This woman was about 1.8 meters tall and looked like she was in her 20s. She had an exquisite figure and was as beautiful as a fairy. Her soft and tender skin seemed to break with a flick of his finger. Her long dress fluttered in the wind, and her fine black hair danced in the wind. She looked like a fairy who was about to leave with the wind. Behind him, there were two girls around the age of 18. Their attire was a little different from that of the purple-clothed woman. They were more simple, but they were still quite pretty. It was also the two of them who were criticizing Qin Feiyong and Li Mu. When the purple-clothed woman heard their conversation, she was speechless. I say the two of you are about to become love-struck fools, do you know that? It's the truth. Miss, I think they are a good match for you. Why don't you just pick one? The two girls giggled. Are you asking for a beating? The purple-clothed woman glared at the two women. The two girls stuck out their tongues at the purple-clothed woman, appearing extremely lively. The violet-robed woman rolled her eyes. She inclined her head and stared at Qin Feiyong and Qin Wentian as she mumbled. These two arrogant brats actually dared to destroy my heaven immortal tower. I won't spare them. Quickly look. It's the Tower Lord of the Heaven Immortal Tower. Miss Heaven Immortal. Suddenly, someone stared at the purple-clothed woman and exclaimed. It's really her. Miss Heaven Immortal, I have admired you for a long time. Please give me an autograph. Miss Heaven Immortal, I am Luo Yun. I wonder if I have the honor to invite Miss to the solitary cloud peak to admire the moon? The crowd instantly became restless. Miss, look at how charming you are. You can cause a commotion wherever you go. The two women laughed softly. You guys talk too much. The purple-clothed woman angrily knocked on their foreheads and disappeared without a trace with the two women. Miss Heaven Immortal. Everyone looked at the surrounding void, their faces filled with disappointment. Tower Lord of the Heaven Immortal Tower? Miss Heaven Immortal. Hearing the commotion below, Qin Feiyong and Hui couldn't help but look down suspiciously. However, they didn't see anything. Qin Feiyong turned to look at Hui and asked, What is the background of this Miss Heaven Immortal? I don't know. Hui shook his head. Are you interested? Qin Feiyong glared at him angrily. I really don't know. Hui said helplessly. Qin Feiyong wished he could kick him. If others didn't know, he could still understand. But as the Vice Palace Master of Nine Heavens Palace, how could he not know? Playing dumb all day long, was he addicted to it? Hui coughed dryly and looked around. He frowned and said, Why hasn't this demon ancestor appeared yet? Qin Feiyong knew that this guy was changing the topic, but he didn't expose him. He looked around and his brows gradually furrowed. He brought Hui and openly descended in the sky above Heaven Luo City. In fact, he was waiting for the demon ancestor to take the initiative to appear. Because yesterday's matter was already big enough. The demon ancestor was at Heavenly Cloud Mountain. Even if he was in seclusion, he should have received the news. But now, after waiting for so long, he actually didn't appear. What was going on? Could it be that because of what happened back then, the demon ancestor felt guilty and didn't have the face to see him? But thinking about it, that didn't seem right. Because he knew the demon ancestor too well. He was definitely not such a person. Boom! Suddenly, two terrifying auras burst out. One came from the direction of Heavenly Cloud Mountain, and the other came from Heaven Luo City. Hui's expression changed. He grabbed Qin Feiyong and flew out of the city without looking back. He flew towards the depths of the mountain. What? Qin Feiyong was surprised. Hui said in a deep voice, 2 half-step eternal realm auras. Staying in Heaven Luo City to wait for death? Qin Feiyong was shocked. The aura from Heavenly Cloud Mountain is the old man we saw yesterday. As for the aura from Heaven Luo City, there's no doubt that it's from the treasure pavilion. Hui said. They actually sent out 2 half-step eternal realm experts. Looks like Dongling City is serious this time. Qin Feiyong frowned. Wrong. Hui shook his head. Qin Feiyong was startled and asked suspiciously, What's wrong? Hui said, Think about it. If they really want to kill us, why would they release their aura in advance to alert us? Yeah, they could have snuck over and caught us off guard. Qin Feiyong said. They should be hinting at us to leave immediately. In other words, they're secretly helping us. Hui said. But why would they do that? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. The treasure pavilion should have something to do with the vice pavilion master. Do you remember that the vice pavilion master talked with the treasure pavilion master for a long time after bringing us to Dongling City? Hui asked. Yeah. Qin Feiyang nodded. I think the vice pavilion master asked her to secretly help us at a critical moment. As for why the old man guarding Heavenly Cloud Mountain wants to help us, I really don't know. Hui shook his head. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and said, could it have something to do with Old Man Wei? Old Man Wei? Hui was stunned. Yeah. I remember that he said yesterday that he and Old Man Wei were old friends. Qin Feiyang said. Old friends, Hui murmured and frowned. That's not right. Chapter 2277. What's wrong? Qin Feiyang looked at him suspiciously. The Eastern Tomb Treasure Pavilion helped us because of the Deputy Pavilion Master's instructions, but this old man from Sky Cloud Mountain doesn't know about our relationship with Elder Wei. Hui said. That's true. Qin Feiyang nodded. Although Su Mo had been to the northern region, the Great Elder and the others didn't tell him the truth. Suddenly, Qin Feiyang said, do you think someone from the Eastern Tomb Treasure Pavilion secretly informed this old man? That may be the only explanation. Hui thought for a moment and whispered. Boom! Behind them, two terrifying auras surged toward the place. Qin Feiyang and Hui turned around and their expressions changed slightly. They saw two old men chasing after them at lightning speed. The one on the left was the old man guarding Sky Cloud Mountain. The old man on the left had a head of long red hair. He wasn't very tall, only about 1.6 meters. But his face was ruddy and his spirit was hale and hearty. His body was also full of muscles. It could be said that he was stronger than a young man. Both of them were using a mysterious footwork and were extremely fast. Legendary level auxiliary divine technique. Hui muttered. Didn't you say that they were helping us? Why are they chasing after us? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Not only were the two chasing after them with all their strength, but their expressions were also full of killing intent. Maybe I guessed wrong. Hui whispered and also used a mysterious footwork. His speed instantly soared by a large margin. Qin Feiyang said in surprise, is this also a legendary level auxiliary divine technique? I'm a half-step invincible realm expert. Is it strange that I have a legendary level auxiliary divine technique? You're making a fuss over nothing. Hui glanced at Qin Feiyang with disdain. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Unknowingly, Qin Feiyang and Hui had already entered the depths of the mountain. In the mountains, ferocious beasts were everywhere. But none of them dared to run out and block the way. Under Hui's terrifying aura, they were all trembling. Behind them, the two old men were also chasing after them. Are you done? Hui arched an eyebrow. He simply stopped in the void and turned to look at the two. The two old men glanced at each other. As soon as they got close to Qin Feiyang, they immediately attacked Qin Feiyang without saying a word. Seems that we were wrong. They released their auras in advance not to inform us, but to provoke us. Hui thought. Why aren't you leaving? Qin Feiyang shouted. Although Hui was also a half-step undying, his opponents were two half-step undying experts. He was definitely not their match. Boom! The two of them charged over aggressively. Killing intent flashed in Hui's eyes as he raised both hands. Divine power surged out and blasted towards the two. Qin Feiyang decisively entered the castle. Rumble! The three of them clashed. A destructive aura immediately spread out in all directions with this place as the center. In an instant, the surrounding mountains and rivers collapsed, and the earth caved in. It was like a scene of doomsday. Hui was also sent flying by the two at the same time, blood gushing out of his mouth. But the two of them didn't chase after him. Divine power roared and condensed into a huge ending that enveloped all directions. Immediately, the destructive shockwave was blocked by the spirit formation. They did this to avoid harming the innocent. Then, the two of them spread out and blocked Hui from the front and back. The old man guarding Heaven Cloud Mountain smiled and said, "Little brother, we meet again. Let me introduce myself. This old man is Shan Qianshan, an idler of Heaven Cloud Mountain." The red-haired old man also said, This old man is Cho Tianwei, also an idler of the treasure pavilion. There was an icy chill in his tone. Shun Qianshan Cho Tianwei. Hui muttered and sneered. I didn't expect that a half-step undying expert would become a dog of the dragons. You and Qin Feiyang fought against the dragons. You know better than us how strong the dragons are, so you should also know that we have no choice, Shin Qianshan said. That's right. We must strictly follow Lord Ancestral Dragon's orders. Cho Tianwei nodded. Good. Hui nodded and suddenly shouted, Qin Feiyang, give me a legendary divine artifact. With a clang, the blue phoenix sword appeared. This was the legendary divine artifact that Qin Feiyang had snatched from Feng Zihan. Qin Feiyang had more than one legendary divine artifact now. The blue phoenix sword was only one of them. The giant scythe that he had snatched from the fire dragon in the depths of the Sky Dragon Sea was also a legendary divine artifact. This included the dagger that he had snatched from the law enforcement hallmaster of Heavencloud Mountain. Hui grabbed the hilt and poured his divine power into the blue phoenix sword. Clang! Streaks of world-destroying sharpness gushed out like an avalanche. The barrier that Shan Qianshan and Cho Tianwei had set up immediately began to twist and crack. Revived the legendary divine artifact. Are you crazy? Shan Qianshan and Cho Tianwei's expressions changed as they looked at Hui angrily. Hui turned a deaf ear, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Stop! You're a half-step undying. If you fully revive the legendary divine artifact, everything within 100 million miles will be destroyed. Shin Qianshan shouted. What does it have to do with me? If you dare to attack me, then you should have this awareness. Hui sneered. Shin Qianshan and Cho Tianwei's faces sank. Suddenly, the two withdrew their auras and slowly retreated. Hui was slightly taken aback and laughed. Seems like you care about the people of East Tomb, Shin Qianshan said. Our goal is only you and Qin Feiyang. We don't want to hurt the innocent. I'm afraid that's very difficult to do. After all, once people at our level fight, it's inevitable that innocent people will be hurt. Hui said. Cho Tianwei said angrily, you're a half-step undying. How can you be so cruel? I don't want to either. But you forced me. What can I do? Hui shrugged helplessly. Give up resisting. The dragons are not people you can afford to provoke. Facing the pursuit of the dragons, no matter how much you struggle, you won't have a way out. Shin Qianshan sighed. That's not necessarily true. Hui smiled contemptuously. Is that so? But at this moment, a gloomy voice sounded. Following closely, two terrifying killing intents swept out from the top of Shan Qianshan and Cho Tianwei's head like lightning, piercing through Hui's lower abdomen. Puff! Hui's face turned pale as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The recovering Azure Phoenix sword also stopped abruptly, and on his lower abdomen there were two bloody holes. What's going on? Inside the ancient castle, Qin Feiyang looked at this scene in surprise. Why did two killing intents suddenly appear? Wait! This killing intense aura and this voice were very familiar. Hui's face was also filled with shock. He never thought that the two of them would have such terrifying killing intents hidden in their bodies. Who was it that instantly shattered his chi-si? The next moment, the two killing intents turned into human figures. It was the ancestral dragon of the Black Dragon clan. I knew that you would come to East Tomb again, so before returning to the Divine Land, I deliberately left behind a few killing intents. The two killing intents looked at Hui and sneered. Chapter 2278. Hui's heart sank. This ancestral dragon was indeed not so easy to deal with. Wait, why did the ancestral dragon return to the divine continent? Could it be that he went back to get reinforcements? Killing intent, Hui muttered, his eyes flickering. Go to hell. This time, the black-robed old man's killing intent did not give Hui any chance to counterattack. Two killing intents frantically rushed towards Hui. Hui smiled coldly and said, just two killing intents? Can you overturn the heavens? He took out a pill and threw it into his mouth. What? Although the pill was like a flash in the pan, it was still clearly captured by Qin Feiyang. It was a spirit sea pill. And it was a spirit sea pill with a dragon-shaped pill chi. In other words, That was a real divine pill. This guy actually had a divine pill? As soon as the spirit sea pill entered Hui's body, it turned into an incomparably majestic energy and rushed towards the broken Qi Sea. Immediately, the Qi Sea was recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Seeing this, the two killing intents revealed a trace of contempt in their eyes and instantly rushed in front of Hui. Moreover, they were both rushing towards Hui's glabella. Obviously, they wanted to destroy Hui's divine soul in one fell swoop. Humph! Hui snorted coldly as his divine sense rolled out and collided with the two killing intents. His Qi Sea was not repaired and could not use divine power, so he could only temporarily use his divine sense to delay the two killing intents. But even if it was just two killing intents, it was far from what he could compare to. Boom! His divine sense shattered on the spot. Hui let out a miserable groan and crashed into the ground below like a meteorite. The ground suddenly shattered and collapsed. If it were not for Shan Qianshan's divine power barrier, the surrounding tens of millions of miles would have been razed to the ground in an instant. So strong. Hui lay on the ground in a sorry state, blood spurting out. Even the two killing intents had the strength to shatter his bones. Boom! It was also at this moment, under the restoration of the divine pill, his Qi Sea was finally healed. This speed could not be said to be slow. Hui took a deep breath and rushed into the sky. Divine power surged as he used all his strength to revive the Azure Phoenix sword. Seeing this, Shan Qianshan said in a deep voice, "Old man Cho, you must block their battle fluctuations." Cho Tianwei nodded. The two of them soared into the sky and poured their divine power into the barrier. Kill! Hui roared. The Azure Phoenix sword emitted a dazzling radiance that swept across the heavens and earth. And the two killing intents were filled with disdain as they transformed into two gigantic black swords. They carried a world-destroying sharpness as they shot towards Hui. Qindage, big brother Hui's situation is not good. Inside the castle, Fire Lotus had also appeared behind Qin Feiyang at some point in time. Her face was full of worry as she looked at the scene in front of her. Yes, Qin Feiyang nodded. Although Hui had a fearless appearance on the surface, the truth was that he didn't have a chance of winning. Because that was the killing intent of the ancestral dragon. From this, it could be seen how powerful the ancestral dragon was. Just 2 strands of killing intent were enough to suppress a half-step undying. I have to think of a way, Qin Feiyang mumbled. But what could he do in the face of an expert of this level? Wait a minute. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he shouted, "Fire Lotus, prepare the herbs. Open the furnace and refine the pill." With that, he walked towards the cultivation room. "What pill are you refining?" Fire Lotus hurriedly chased after him. "Heavenly Dust Divine Pill." Qin Feiyang said word by word. The Heavenly Dust Divine Pill could temporarily increase a person's cultivation by a small realm for half an hour. Perhaps when Hui's cultivation reached the initial stage of the Undying Realm, he would have the strength to fight against the two killing intents. And these years, they hadn't been able to harvest any herbs. Especially when they looted the treasury of the City Lord's mansion, the herbs they obtained were countless. Among them, there were many herbs for the Heavenly Dust Divine Pill. It was Qin Feiyang's first time refining the Heavenly Dust Divine Pill, so he was especially careful. Because this was related to Hui's safety, he absolutely couldn't fail now. He had to succeed in one go. About 100 breaths later, whoosh! A pale golden pill was out of the furnace. Qin Feiyang grabbed it with his hand, his face full of smiles. Will this work? After all, Hui has already reached the Undying Realm. Fire Lotus had a doubtful attitude. How will we know if we don't try? It's best to pray that the Heavenly Dust Divine Pill can play a key role. Qin Feiyang muttered and waved his hand. The scene of the battle outside immediately appeared. Hui was covered in wounds, and he had lost an arm. Even the Azure Phoenix sword was covered in cracks and would shatter at any time. Just 2 killing intents were able to force him to this extent. What cultivation is this ancestral dragon? Initial stage Undying Realm? Or greater stage Undying Realm? Fire Lotus murmured with a face full of disbelief. Qin Feiyang controlled the ancient castle and tried his best to get closer to Hui. Now, it was very difficult for him to even get close to Hui. because the fluctuations of the battle were too terrifying. Let's see who can save you this time. The two killing intents laughed sinisterly and turned into two black arrows that shot towards Hui from the left and right. Seeing this scene, Hui couldn't help but feel a sense of powerlessness in his heart. Hui, don't resist. But at this moment, Qin Feiyang's voice sounded in his mind. Next, an invisible force enveloped him. In the next moment, he appeared in the castle. Boom! At the same time, the two killing intents arrived and bombarded the castle. The castle suddenly shook violently. Hui looked at Fire Lotus, then looked at Qin Feiyang and frowned. What are you doing? Do you know that this will drag you down with it? Hurry up and take Fire Lotus with you and escape. Qin Feiyang said. What will you do if we escape? Hui swallowed a life divine pill and said, it's just two killing intents, they can't take my life. Don't try to be brave, okay? Looking at you now, are you their opponent? Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him, raised his arm and extended it in front of Hui. What? Hui was suspicious. Qin Feiyang opened his big hand, revealing the heavenly dust divine pill, and said, try consuming it. What kind of pill is this? You won't take this opportunity to harm me, right? Hui looked at him warily. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Qin Feiyang glared at him angrily, and directly stuffed the heavenly dust divine pill into Hui's mouth. Then, Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus stared at Hui, their expressions filled with anticipation. Hui frowned. What was going on? Outside, two killing intents crazily bombarded the ancient castle. The ancient castle trembled violently and rumbled. Everything that Fire Lotus had painstakingly set up was once again destroyed. Above the barrier, Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei stared at the two killing intents, their eyes constantly flickering. Chou Tianwei suddenly sent a sound transmission. Old Shen, do you want to help them? No. For the sake of the big picture, for Eastern Tomb, for Heavenly Cloud Mountain and your treasure pavilion, you must endure. Shen Qianshan decisively replied. Sigh. Chou Tianwei sighed and said, I hope they can escape this calamity. This old man believes that they can definitely do it. Shen Qianshan secretly said. Chapter 2279. In the blink of an eye. Inside the castle, under the expectant gazes of Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus, Hui's aura suddenly rushed out of his body uncontrollably. Then it rapidly soared. What's going on? Hui was bewildered. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus were overjoyed, because this meant that the heavenly dust divine pill had an effect on the imperishable realm. This was beyond their imagination. One had to know. The imperishable realm was already a peak existence in this world, but the heavenly dust divine pill was still useful. It could be said that the heavenly dust divine pill was a terrifying trump card. Boom! In less than 3 breaths, Hui's aura suddenly soared to an unprecedented high speed. Imperishable realm initial stage. What's going on? Hui was dumbfounded. Qin Feiyang said, you only have half an hour. Quickly go out and get rid of the killing intent. Half an hour? Hui was stunned. Qin Feiyang said, if there's a problem we can talk about it later. Alright. Hui temporarily suppressed the doubts in his heart, looked at the scene in the air and said, send me out. Qin Feiyang nodded, but he suddenly noticed the Azure Phoenix sword in Hui's hand. The cracks on the Azure Phoenix sword were like a spider web. It seemed that he couldn't let the Azure Phoenix sword continue to fight. Otherwise it might be destroyed. He waved his hand and a red giant scythe appeared. This was the fire dragon's legendary weapon. Without waiting for Qin Feiyang to speak, Hui understood Qin Feiyang's meaning. He put down the Azure Phoenix sword and grabbed the giant scythe. Let's end this quickly, Qin Feiyang said. Let me tell you, I'm very confident now. If God blocks, I'll kill God. If devil blocks, I'll kill devil. Hui grinned. Qin Feiyang smiled and waved his hand. Hui suddenly disappeared. Damn it. What's the point of hiding? Outside, the two killing intents became angry. If the black-robed old man was here, he would have a way to force Qin Feiyang's group out. They might even destroy the castle. This was because the black-robed old man also possessed a heaven-defying artifact. But now, the two killing intents were more or less powerless against the ancient castle. Of course. However, this did not mean that Qin Feiyang and the others could hide in the castle. Although the killing intent couldn't break open the ancient castle, it could trap it. After all, the ancient castle was still sealed. It could not be awakened, nor could it activate the power of laws. Therefore, he had to get rid of the black-robed old man's killing intent. The most important thing was, through the killing intent, the black-robed old man might have already known what had happened here. Perhaps they were on their way here right now. Once the black-robed old man's true body descended, then no matter how powerful they were, only death awaited them. After playing with you guys for so long, it's time to end it. Suddenly, with a cruel laugh, Hui appeared out of thin air. As soon as Hui appeared, the two killing intents were bewildered. Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei were the same. Their eyes were wide open, full of disbelief. What's going on with his cultivation? Clang! Hui's body shook, and his divine power surged out. The giant scythe in his hand emitted a dazzling light. The sharpness was earth-shattering, terrifying. After his cultivation was raised to the initial stage of the imperishable realm, the awakening of the legendary artifact's power was far greater than before. The divine power enchantment set up by Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei suddenly began to distort and break. The two suddenly changed color. His divine power poured out without reservation. If this wave of energy were to spread out, it would be a scene of utter destruction. Therefore, they must stabilize the divine power enchantment. They also hoped that Hui could end the battle quickly. Because of Hui's soaring cultivation, they could not hold on for long. If your true body was here, even if my cultivation was raised to the initial stage of the imperishable realm, I would only be killed. However, unfortunately, you guys are just two killing intents. Be destroyed for me. Hui let out a long roar, his fiery red hair fluttering in the void, like a demon god. Clang! Accompanied by a loud noise, the giant scythe fully awakened. Hui immediately grabbed the giant scythe and rushed toward the two killing intents. So what if you destroy us? As you said, we are just two killing intents. Our destruction will not cause any harm to my true body. But you are not the same as Qin Feiyang, because you will die in my hands sooner or later. The two killing intents laughed sinisterly, transforming into two giant black swords, madly slashing forward. Clang! Heaven and earth lost color. The void was annihilated. The divine power enchantment shattered. Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei were also sent flying, blood gushing out of their mouths. Just the fluctuation alone caused them to be seriously injured. This was the difference between a half-step imperishable realm and an initial stage imperishable realm. Could be said that, if one did not have a heaven-defying divine art and divine artifact, facing an initial stage imperishable realm expert, a half-step imperishable realm expert would only be killed in an instant. Clang! At the same time, the two giant swords formed by the two killing intents were both shattered and turned into ashes under the sharpness of the giant scythe. Only a sinister laughter was left, echoing between heaven and earth for a long time. This is the strength of an initial stage imperishable realm expert? Hui muttered, his eyes full of shock. Yes, even he himself was shocked by his current strength. Although the half-step imperishable realm and the initial stage imperishable realm were only one step apart, this step was like one was the sky and the other was the earth. They were not on the same level at all. After experiencing the power of an initial stage imperishable realm expert, he also yearned for this realm like never before. Hui, hurry and help. Suddenly, Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei shouted. Hui quivered and came back to his senses. He raised his head to look at the two, only to see them scanning the surrounding mountains and rivers, their faces full of anxiety. Seeing this, Hui also quickly swept his gaze around, and his face immediately changed. When the divine power enchantment shattered, the fluctuations of the battle were now ruthlessly destroying everything. Seeing this situation, he quickly waved his hand, and divine power surged, sweeping across the sky. A giant enchantment crashed to the ground. That moment, all the fluctuations of the battle were trapped inside the enchantment. Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei finally breathed a sigh of relief. But at this moment, Hui took a step forward, leaving the enchantment, and landed in front of the two. The giant scythe in his hand pointed at the two. That world-destroying edge made Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei tremble uncontrollably. Obviously, he wanted to attack the two of them. Wait! But at this moment, Qin Feiyang appeared beside Hua Yi and grabbed Hua Yi's arm. What are you doing? Hua Yi frowned. Don't be impulsive. Qin Feiyang whispered, looked up at Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei, and said, Seniors, we need an explanation. The two looked at each other and could not help but smile bitterly. Hua Yi raised his eyebrows, lowered his arm and asked, Is it because of the ancestral dragon's killing intent? Yes. Shen Qianshan nodded. In other words, you really want to help us, but because of the ancestral dragon's killing intent, you have no choice but to attack us? Qin Feiyang said. Yes. His killing intent has been lurking in our sea of consciousness. In other words, our every move is under his surveillance. If we don't attack you, then not only will we suffer, even Heavenly Cloud Mountain and the Treasure Pavilion will be implicated. Chapter 2280. Hua Yi nodded and threw the giant scythe to Qin Feiyang. He looked at Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei and smiled. Sorry, I misunderstood you. It's fine. It's human nature. At the same time, I have to congratulate you for breaking through to the imperishable realm. Shen Qianshan smiled. Hua Yi shook his head. I don't think I broke through. What do you mean? Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei looked at each other and suspiciously looked at Hua Yi. I don't know what's going on. This matter. You have to ask him. Hua Yi looked at Qin Feiyang. Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei were slightly stunned, and their gazes immediately shifted to Qin Feiyang. Luck. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Luck? Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei looked at each other, completely unable to understand the meaning of Qin Feiyang's words. Qin Feiyang looked at the two suspiciously and said, Seniors, I'm very curious. Why are you helping us? Chou Tianwei said, It's because of the pavilion master's orders. As expected. Qin Feiyang whispered, We already know what you've done in the northern region. To be honest, this old man has lived for so many years, and I've never met such great young people like you. A trace of admiration appeared on Chou Tianwei's indifferent face. Yes, for Jiutian Palace, for the treasure pavilion, you've sacrificed so much. It's really admirable. Shen Qianshan also praised. Great admirable. This junior really doesn't deserve it. Because we were the ones who attracted the dragons. We have this responsibility and this obligation to protect everyone. Qin Feiyang said. Hey. Can you not count me in? I'm just a victim who was dragged down by you. Hua Yi said unhappily. Qin Feiyang looked at Hua Yi speechlessly and said, You make it sound like I forced you. You were the one who forced me. Hua Yi pouted. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. He didn't feel like wasting words with him. He looked at Shen Qianshan and said, Then do your Heaven Cloud Mountain's Peak Master, Vice Peak Masters, and those elders know about us? I haven't told them yet. I'm also hesitating. Should I tell them? Shen Qianshan said. Qin Feiyang asked, How do you know? He was the one who told me. Shen Qianshan pointed at Chou Tianwei. Qin Feiyang nodded and bowed. Thank you again, seniors. No. To be honest, we still feel a little guilty. Yeah. Not only did we not help you, we almost got you killed. The two of them apologized. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, This junior is already very satisfied that the two seniors have such intentions. Shen Qianshan said, Then tell me, should I tell the Peak Master and the others? Let's not talk about it. Especially Suemo. I'm worried that he will leak information to the dragons in order to take revenge on me. At that time it won't just be us. 9 Heavens Palace Treasure Pavilion. And you will all suffer together. Qin Feiyang said. Shen Qianshan nodded. It made sense. In short, I don't want to implicate anyone in the grudge between me and the dragons. Qin Feiyang smiled. These words once again made Shen Qianshan and Hua Yi look at him in a different light. Chou Tianwei said, As the Vice Pavilion Master of the North said, You are indeed a loyal and responsible young man. You flatter me. Qin Feiyang quickly waved his hand. Shen Qianshan smiled and said, Modesty is a good thing, but too much modesty is arrogance. Qin Feiyang scratched his head and smiled embarrassedly. Shen Qianshan shook his head and sighed. But then again, I don't dare to tell the Peak Master and the others about you. Why? Qin Feiyong and Hui looked at him suspiciously. Shan Qianshan said, because the ancestral dragon left more than 2 killing intents in Dongling. What? Qin Feiyong and Hui were shocked. Shan Qianshan sighed. All the half-step invincible realm cultivators in Dongling have 1 killing intent in them. This? Qin Feiyong and Hui looked at each other. In other words, whether it's Heaven Cloud Mountain or the Treasure Pavilion, we are all under the ancestral dragon's surveillance. Shan Qianshan said. Qin Feiyong asked, then how many killing intents are left in Dongling? 3. They are in the bodies of the Peak Master, the Vice Peak Master, and the Treasure Pavilion Master. Shan Qianshan said. Cho Tianwei said, so now don't go to our Pavilion Master. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but feel a lingering fear after hearing this. Fortunately, he knew this in advance. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Hui asked, do the people of Nine Heavens Palace and the Treasure Pavilion know about this? They don't know yet. Because our every move is under the surveillance of the killing intents, no one dares to report to the northern region. Shan Qianshan said. Hui turned to Qin Feiyong and said, then it seems that we have to go back to the northern region. Qin Feiyong nodded. You don't have to worry about this. That's right. Now, the killing intents that are monitoring us have been removed by you. So old Shen and I can find a chance to go to the northern region, Shan Qianshan and Hui said. Hui frowned and looked at Qin Feiyong. How about this, we chase after them and remove the other 3 killing intents? No. Before Qin Feiyong could speak, Shan Qianshan and Hui shook their heads. Why not? Hui was suspicious. Only we know about the existence of these killing intents. If you go to the Peak Master and the others now, what do you think the ancestral dragon will think? He will definitely suspect that we said it. Shan Qianshan said. This is simple. Hui chuckled. What do you mean? Shan Qianshan and Hui were suspicious. Hui smiled and said, you didn't take the initiative to tell us this. We forced you to say it. Forced us to say it? The two frowned and thought for a while. They suddenly understood. However, you have to suffer a little. Hui said again. Shan Qianshan smiled and said, if we can really get rid of the killing intents, it's okay to suffer a little. I don't agree. But at this moment, Qin Feiyong, who had been silent all this time, suddenly shook his head. The 3 of them looked at Qin Feiyong. It's just 3 killing intents. There's no need to go through so much trouble. And even if we get rid of them, what can we do? Can we bring actual harm to the ancestral dragon? No. So, there's no need to waste this energy. There's one more crucial point. With these killing intents, the ancestral dragon will think that everything is under his control. In this way, he will relax a little. And once we get rid of all the killing intents, he will definitely use other means. And he will be more careful and cautious than before. At that time, our situation may be even more passive, Qin Feiyong said. Hearing this, Shan Qianshan and Hui pondered for a while and nodded. That makes sense. Let's not touch these 3 killing intents first. All right. Chapter 2281. Then we won't stay any longer. We'll go back first. After we go back, I'll find an opportunity to go to the north region. Shan Qianshan said. Indeed, we can't stay any longer. Otherwise, the other 3 killing intents will definitely be suspicious. Cho Tianwei said. Qin Feiyong asked then, have you thought of how to deal with them? That's simple. The 2 smiled confidently. All right then. Qin Feiyong nodded. The 2 turned and left. Suddenly, Qin Feiyong seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly called out, Senior Shun, wait a moment. The 2 stopped in the air and turned to look at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyong flew over and looked at Shan Qianshan. I suddenly thought of something and would like to ask Senior Shan for help. What is it? Shan Qianshan was puzzled. Senior, do you know a person called Ouyang Wenyi? Qin Feiyong asked. Ouyang Wenyi. Shan Qianshan pondered for a moment and nodded. I've heard of him, but I don't have any impression of him, Qin Feiyong said. He was once the number 1 person on the Heavenly Cloud Mountain leaderboard, and is now a core disciple of the Heavenly Cloud Mountain. If it's the number 1 person on the Heaven leaderboard, I'll definitely be familiar with him. But the number one person on the Earth leaderboard? To be honest, I've never paid attention to the Earth leaderboard. Shen Qianshan said apologetically. Qin Feiyong said, Senior, can you help me find this person and tell him that I'll be waiting for him at the Heaven Immortal Tower? Is he very important to you? Shen Qianshan was suspicious. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. All right. When we return from the North region, I'll help you look for him. In order to facilitate communication, we'll also establish a contract bridge. Shen Qianshan took out an image crystal. My pleasure. Qin Feiyong also hurriedly took out an image crystal. For an expert like Shen Qianshan, it was difficult to speak normally, let alone establish a contract bridge. This was an honor for any young man. After establishing the contract bridge, Shen Qianshan turned to look at Chou Tianwei and said, Old Chou, establish a contract bridge with him as well, just in case. Yes. Chou Tianwei nodded. Qin Feiyong naturally couldn't ask for more, because in this way, he would gain 2 half-step undying allies. After establishing the contract with the Chou Tianwei, Qin Feiyong put away the image crystal, cupped his hands and smiled, Take care, seniors. I won't see you off until we meet again. The two of them also cupped their hands and smiled in a rather courteous manner. Then they turned around and tore through the air with lightning speed. Hui retracted his gaze and suspiciously looked at Qin Feiyong. He asked, Who is Ouyang Wenyi? Fiend ancestor. Qin Feiyong said. So it was him. Hui suddenly understood. Actually, I don't know if Ouyang Wenyi is his real name. It's just that when I read the memories of that disciple from Heaven Cloud Mountain, I learned that he was using this name. Qin Feiyong said. Aren't you old acquaintances with him? Why don't I know his real name? Hui was astonished. Because in the past we all called him Fiend Ancestor. I've never heard anyone say his real name. Qin Feiyong said. I see. Hui nodded. Then looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Now tell me, what's going on with my cultivation? Qin Feiyong briefly explained the situation of the Heavenly Dust Divine Pill. What? There's actually such a pill in this world. Hui was dumbfounded when he heard this. This was too miraculous. Qin Feiyong said, Speaking of pills, I want to ask you, where did you get that divine pill? Divine pill? Really? Why don't I know about it? Hui said. Pretending and pretending? The spirit sea pill you took, if it's not a divine pill, then what is it? Qin Feiyong said angrily. You saw it. Hui smiled embarrassedly. I'm not blind. Qin Feiyong glared at him fiercely. Hui said, I got this divine pill by chance. Why didn't I have this chance? Qin Feiyong sneered. Is there even a need to say it? It must be because my character is better than yours. Hui despised. Your character is better? Qin Feiyong rolled his eyes. Let's not talk about this first. This Heavenly Dust Divine Pill, how many do you have now? Also, is there any limit to it? Hui asked with a bright light in his eyes. What do you want to do? Qin Feiyong looked at him warily. I don't want to do anything. I just want to prepare a few in case of an emergency. Hui smiled. In your dreams. This Heavenly Dust Divine Pill's medicinal herbs are more precious than the 4 symbols Infinite Divine Pill. Yesterday, Fire Lotus and I counted. After being in the ancient world for so long, we only managed to gather 3 sets of medicinal herbs. I just gave you one. In other words, I only have 2 sets of medicinal herbs left. Qin Feiyong said. Hui was stunned and asked, including the City Lord Mansion's treasury? Qin Feiyong nodded. Isn't this too outrageous? All these years you have killed and robbed many people. Including the City Lord Mansion's treasury, you only managed to gather 3 sets of medicinal herbs? Hui's face was filled with disbelief. Wait. Qin Feiyong hurriedly reached out to interrupt Hui and frowned. When did I kill and rob people? Think about it yourself. How many people have you killed and how many universe rings and universe bags have you obtained? Hui said. Qin Feiyong said angrily. They deserve to be killed. Are they also killing and robbing people? What's the difference? Hui asked. Fine. I won't argue with you. Let's go to the castle first. Let me see how strong the side effects of this Heavenly Dust Divine Pill are. After Qin Feiyong finished speaking, he disappeared with Hui. Although the Heavenly Dust Divine Pill was heaven-defying, It had a fatal side effect. After the effect of the pill was over, he would enter a weakened state. However, as he had never taken it before, he was not sure how weak he would be. In the future, he would inevitably have to take the heavenly dust divine pill. Hence, he wanted to take a look in advance to be mentally prepared. In the sky above a certain mountain, Shen Qianshan and Hui were moving as fast as lightning. Chou Tianwei said, I really did not expect that Hui's cultivation would suddenly increase to the undying realm. Yes, if his cultivation did not increase, they will definitely be in trouble this time. I just don't know what they have done. Shen Qianshan's face was filled with suspicion. Chou Tianwei suddenly stopped and looked at Shen Qianshan. He asked, Did you notice a problem? What problem? Shen Qianshan asked curiously. When Hui was fighting with the killing intent, he did not activate his fighting soul or use his divine art. Chou Tianwei frowned. Shen Qianshan was slightly stunned. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, It seems to be the case. Why did he not use his divine art when his life was at stake? Could he be hiding something? Chou Tianwei muttered. Shen Qianshan pondered for a while and asked, Could he be hiding his identity? Hiding his identity, Chou Tianwei murmured and nodded. This is the only explanation. Who is this Hui? Even the Nine Heavens Palace and the Treasure Pavilion in the North region do not know his identity. Shen Qianshan smiled and said, There is no need to think so much. As long as he is not an enemy. That's true. This Qin Feiyang is still too weak. He has to grow up quickly. I also hope that we have made the right choice. Otherwise, we will become the sinners of the Eastern Tomb. Chou Tianwei said worriedly. We have to believe in him. Moreover, isn't there still Qin Badian? Qin Feiyang can't do it, but I believe that Qin Badian can do it. Shen Qianshan smiled. I hope so. Chou Tianwei sighed. Then, the two looked at each other and slapped their lower abdomens at the same time. Boom! Their qi was shattered. Their lower abdomens were also badly mutilated. This was not the end. They each cut off an arm, and then used their divine power to cut open countless wounds on their bodies so deep that their bones could be seen. After a while, the two of them were dripping with blood. The intense pain caused their faces to turn pale. After doing all this, the two of them continued to fly toward Heavenly Cloud Mountain. Chapter 2282. Half an hour later. Ancient Castle. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus stood in the hall, looking at Hui with a stunned expression. They saw Hui lying on the ground, his whole body twitching. His face was also pale, as if he was in a critical state. They couldn't sense any cultivation or aura from his body. This is the side effect of the heavenly dust divine pill? Fire Lotus whispered. This was too terrifying. With Hui's current state, even a person without the strength to truss a chicken could easily kill him. Kid, you're not pretending, right? Qin Feiyang looked at Hui and frowned. Wasn't this side effect a little too ridiculous? Pretending. When Hui heard this, a trace of anger appeared on his pale face. But it seemed that he didn't even have the strength to speak. It seems that you're not pretending. Qin Feiyang muttered. Hui rolled his eyes. What was there to pretend about such a shameful thing? Qin Feiyang said, All right, you just lie here and have a good rest. After half an hour, the side effect will disappear. What? It will take another half an hour for the side effect to disappear. Hui couldn't help but curse in his heart. If he didn't know the truth, he would have suspected that Qin Feiyang was deliberately harming him. Qin Feiyang smiled. I'll go to the Heaven Immortal Tower first. Let me know when you're done. I'll treat you to some heavenly immortal wine. That's more like it. A smile appeared on Hui's face. Thinking of the heavenly immortal wine, he couldn't help but drool. However, could this kid get the heavenly immortal wine? The heavenly immortal wine was never for sale. Then I'll go out. Qin Feiyang said and prepared to leave the castle. I say, don't ignore me. When I go out, I must see the heavenly immortal wine. Otherwise, I won't let you off. Hui opened his mouth and said intermittently. I'm just joking, do you really take it seriously? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Hui was so angry that his body trembled. All right. I'll definitely think of a way to get you a pot. Qin Feiyong hurriedly comforted him. 2 pots. Hui said. Qin Feiyong's face darkened. He said angrily, I said, don't push your luck. Who did I end up in such a sorry state because of? I didn't ask you to do anything outrageous. It's just 2 pots of celestial immortal wine. And you're saying that I'm insatiable? Do you have a conscience? Hui angrily said. Fine, fine, fine. I'm afraid of you. I'll do my best. Qin Feiyong looked at him helplessly and took out an illusory form elixir to disguise himself as a sickly young man. He left the ancient castle and headed towards Tianluo City. Hey, do you guys know? An hour ago, Heaven Cloud Mountain and the Treasure Pavilion sent out 2 half-step undying experts to hunt down Qin Feiyong and Hui. But guess what happened? Those 2 half-step undying experts had their Sea of Qi destroyed by Hui and Qin Feiyong. They fled back in a sorry state. No way. 2 half-step undying sovereigns are still not their match. I just came to Tianluo City, so I didn't know about this. Is what you said true? Of course it's true. The son of a friend of mine is an inner disciple of Heaven Cloud Mountain. He saw those 2 enter Heaven Cloud Mountain covered in blood. Then who are those 2 half-step undying experts? I think they're called Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei. Not only did their Sea of Qi shatter, but they also lost an arm. What a sorry state. Unbelievable. How strong are Qin Feiyong and Hui? Didn't they say that Qin Feiyong is only a low-level divine lord? Qin Feiyong is indeed a low-level divine lord. But that Hui is a half-step undying expert. He's too terrifying. But this Qin Feiyong isn't that simple. That's true. If he's just a simple character, how could Hui, a half-step undying expert, be so close to him? There was a long line at each of the 4 city gates of Tianluo City. Everyone who entered or left the city had to be checked by the Heaven's Eye Stone. This was an order from Heaven Cloud Mountain and the Treasure Pavilion. Their purpose was naturally to find Qin Feiyong and Hui. Everyone was waiting in line to be checked while discussing. At the back of the crowd, there was a sickly youth with a pale face. This person was Qin Feiyong. Hearing everyone's discussion, he was extremely moved. He never imagined that in order to cover him and Hui, Shan Qianshan and Chou Tianwei would actually lose an arm. Next, on both sides of the city gate, 4 guards strictly carried out the orders of Heaven Cloud Mountain and the Treasure Pavilion, not letting anyone go. Qin Feiyong looked up and couldn't help but frown. It was almost impossible to use the Heaven's Eye Stone to check them. It seemed that he could only directly teleport in or use the Black Tortoise World or fly in. Wait! Suddenly, Qin Feiyong looked up at the city gate and his pupils suddenly shrank. He saw an old man sitting on the city wall. The old man was dressed in black and his aura was unfathomable. And on the old man's clothes, there was a mountain-like pattern. Obviously, this old man was from Heaven Cloud Mountain. They actually sent such an expert to guard Tianluo City. Qin Feiyong mumbled. He left quietly and headed to the other 3 city gates to check. As expected, the other 3 city gates were each guarded by an expert from Heaven Cloud Mountain. It seemed that Heaven Cloud Mountain was serious. One must know. In the past few years in the northern region, even if the ancestral dragon personally came, 9 Heaven's Palace and the Treasure Pavilion did not send any experts to guard Tianlong City. Heaven Cloud Mountain was more proactive than anyone. Retreating deep into the mountains, Qin Feiyong opened an altar and directly teleported to the vicinity of the Heaven Immortal Tower. Although only a day had passed, the Heaven Immortal Tower that was destroyed by Hui had been rebuilt and was even more imposing than before. The surrounding buildings and the city lord's manor were also rebuilt. Young master, please come in. Under the lead of a waiter, Qin Feiyong walked into the Heaven Immortal Tower. Yesterday's incident did not affect the Heaven Immortal Tower at all. It was as lively as ever. Whether it was the hall or the private rooms upstairs, it was filled with laughter. Qin Feiyong sat in an inconspicuous corner of the hall and ordered 2 side dishes and a pot of wine. Because he had changed his appearance, no one disturbed him and it was quiet. Time passed bit by bit. In the evening, the Heaven Immortal Tower was undoubtedly even more lively. Those who came in to eat and drink had to queue up. And most of them were from wealthy families. Because at night, this was a paradise for men to seek pleasure. Every man had a beautiful woman by his side to accompany him. Qin Feiyong was the only one who was always alone. Young master, do you need me to accompany you? Night fell. A gorgeously dressed and alluring woman walked to Qin Feiyong's table. She held a wine cup and looked at Qin Feiyong with seductive eyes. It's quite comfortable to be alone. Thank you. Qin Feiyong politely rejected the woman. How boring. Look, in the entire Heaven Immortal Tower, only you don't have a female companion. How eye-catching. The woman glanced at Qin Feiyong with disdain. She then turned and walked away, swaying her hips. Eye-catching. Qin Feiyong mumbled and looked around. Compared to the others, he was indeed eye-catching. Because in the entire hall, his table was the quietest. It was easy to attract the attention of others. Miss, hold on. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed as he looked at the woman's back. The woman was stunned. She turned and looked at Qin Feiyong. Young master, are you calling me? Qin Feiyong nodded. He pointed to the seat opposite him and smiled. Sit down and chat with me for a while. The woman smiled charmingly, but she didn't sit opposite Qin Feiyong. Instead, she sat beside Qin Feiyong. Moreover, she was very close to him. Her entire body was almost sticking to Qin Feiyong's body. Young master, after being in the Heaven Immortal Tower for so many years, this is the first time I've heard someone call us miss. You are so innocent. Could it be that this is your first time here? The woman curiously looked at Qin Feiyong. Cough cough. Qin Feiyong coughed dryly and speechlessly said, This is me showing my respect to you. Respect? The woman was astonished. She actually took the initiative to hug Qin Feiyong's arm and smiled. You are really a special man. Cough cough. You better sit opposite me. Qin Feiyong felt somewhat uncomfortable. It wasn't because this woman was a prostitute. It was because he was really not used to such an indulgent life. All right. You are a guest. It's fine as long as you are satisfied. The woman shook her head and smiled. She got up and sat opposite him. She held her chin with both hands and sized up Qin Feiyong. Other men would have their hands on a woman like her when they saw her. But this man didn't have any thoughts at all. What a freak. Qin Feiyong didn't pay any attention to him and continued to drink. Suddenly, the woman opened her mouth and asked very seriously, Young master, do you have kidney deficiency? Qin Feiyong almost spat out. Kidney deficiency? What the hell was this? I'm sorry. The woman hurriedly apologized, but her cheeks were red. She wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. Qin Feiyong helplessly shook his head and said, I will give you 100 million divine crystals. Just sit there quietly. 100 million. The woman's eyes immediately lit up. So he was a rich man? However, this person looked sick and his appearance and clothes were ordinary. He didn't look like a rich person. Could it be that he was ignoring her? Qin Feiyong didn't speak again. 100 million divine crystals was just a drop in the ocean for him. Yesterday, when he and Fire Lotus counted the treasures in the City Lord's mansion's treasure vault, he was also shocked. There were as many as 100 billion divine crystals in the treasure vault. There were also more than 10 billion soul stones. There were countless medicinal herbs, divine weapons and divine arts. For example, there were hundreds of supreme-grade divine weapons and perfect divine arts. The only regret was that there were no peak-grade divine weapons and peak-grade divine arts. Although there were no peak-grade divine weapons and divine arts, if he sold these divine weapons and divine arts, it would still be a considerable amount of wealth. So, he planned to find time to return to the northern region and sell all these things to the treasure pavilion. Because these things weren't of much value to him, he might as well exchange them for divine crystals. Why did he exchange them for divine crystals and not soul stones? Because right now what he wanted the most was divine crystals. Chapter 2283. If it was in the past, Qin Feiyong would definitely choose the soul stone without hesitation, because the soul stone was the key to cultivation. But it was different now. After learning about the situation of the Black Tortoise world from the little boy, he began to plan in his heart. The growth process of the Black Tortoise world was very slow, but if there were a large number of crystal veins and divine crystals, it could accelerate the growth of the Black Tortoise world. And the divine crystals could also nurture spirit veins. Although he didn't have a spirit vein that truly belonged to him now, It was hard to guarantee that he wouldn't have one in the future. So he had to plan ahead and make preparations in advance. Of course, it was also because the soul stones he had now were enough for a long time. Because everyone had gone to the divine land, only he and the white-eyed wolf were left. Naturally, the soul stones weren't so tight. Dong! Suddenly, a bell rang in the heaven immortal tower. Qin Feiyong was stunned and looked up. The bell came from the top floor of the heaven immortal tower. Why was there a bell ringing for no reason? At the same time, everyone in the hall raised their heads and looked at the top floor. Their eyes were filled with bewilderment. Even the people in the private rooms upstairs walked out one by one. Seeing this, Qin Feiyong was even more puzzled. He looked at the woman sitting opposite him and asked, "What's going on?" "It's very strange." The woman whispered. "What's strange?" Qin Feiyong was puzzled. The woman frowned and said, "This bell only rings at the beginning of every month. Why is it ringing now?" "It only rings at the beginning of the month? What do you mean?" Qin Feiyong was even more puzzled. The woman seemed to have come back to her senses and looked at Qin Feiyong, asking, "You don't know?" Qin Feiyong shook his head. "You're really a weirdo. Anyone who has stayed in Heaven Immortal City knows the meaning of the bell ringing," the woman said. Qin Feiyong was speechless. "It's my first time in Heaven Immortal City. Isn't it normal that I don't know?" "First time." The woman was stunned and said with a smile, "Then you're really lucky. Make it clear in one go." Qin Feiyong frowned. The woman asked, "Do you know that our Heaven Immortal Tower has a type of supreme divine wine called the Heavenly Immortal Wine?" "I've heard of it." Qin Feiyong nodded. "This celestial immortal wine is only auctioned once a month. Every time, one pot will go to the highest bidder. This bell is the precursor to the auction of the celestial immortal wine." The woman smiled. Qin Feiyong said, "In other words, the immortal wine will be auctioned soon?" "Yes," the woman replied. Qin Feiyong was stunned and asked suspiciously, "Why did I hear that the auction won't start until the beginning of the month?" The woman said, "That's why I find it strange too. It's not even the beginning of the month yet." Qin Feiyong's eyes flickered. Why did the Heaven Immortal Tower want to auction the Heavenly Immortal Wine in advance? However, this was truly a timely reign at the right time. Earlier, he was still thinking about how to get his hands on the celestial immortal wine. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to explain himself to Hua Yi. The woman sized up Qin Feiyong for a moment and asked, "Young master, do you want to participate in the auction as well?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded. The woman said, "I advise young master not to participate." "Why?" Qin Feiyong looked at her suspiciously. Those who participate in the auction of the celestial immortal wine are basically all big shots in East Tomb. Every one of them is extremely generous. You won't be able to compete with them in such a competition. The woman said, "Is that so?" Qin Feiyong didn't think much of it. "Don't doubt me. There's still the most important point," the woman said again. "What is it?" Qin Feiyong was curious. The woman got up and sat beside Qin Feiyong, saying in a low voice, "The most important thing is actually those playboys." "Playboys?" Qin Feiyong frowned. "Yes. I think you're more innocent, so I'm telling you this. Those playboys actually don't want the celestial immortal wine, but Miss Celestial Immortal." The woman said in a low voice, "Miss Celestial Immortal," Qin Feiyong muttered. "This Miss Celestial Immortal is the tower master of our Heaven Immortal Tower. She rarely shows herself. Not only is she beautiful, but her family background is also unparalleled. So many playboys in Heaven Luo City are drooling over her. Even the heaven-ranking disciples of Skycloud Mountain regard her as their dream lover." The woman said. "So that's the case." Qin Feiyong suddenly understood and said, "In other words, they came to bid for the celestial immortal wine purely to curry favor with this Miss Celestial Immortal." "Yes." The woman nodded. Qin Feiyong asked curiously, "Then what's the background of this Miss Celestial Immortal?" Miss Celestial Immortal's background is very big. She's the granddaughter of the Treasure Pavilion's Tower Master, the woman said in a low voice. Qin Feiyong was stunned. So she was the granddaughter of the white-haired old woman. No wonder even the heaven-ranking disciples of Skycloud Mountain wanted to curry favor with her. The treasure pavilion was a colossus that was even more terrifying than the Nine Heavens Palace in Skycloud Mountain. If one could marry the granddaughter of the treasure pavilion's tower master, they would soar to the sky and reach the peak of their life. Who wouldn't want such an opportunity? The woman smiled and said, "So don't participate in it, lest you offend those people." "Thank you for telling me." Qin Feiyong smiled. The woman hugged Qin Feiyong's arm and said, "Young master is really smart. Why don't you let me accompany you tonight?" Stop. Qin Feiyong hurriedly said. The woman was stunned and said, "Young master, you can't really have a kidney, cough cough." Qin Feiyong choked again and said helplessly, "I admit, a little, so you can just accompany me." "It's okay. Because I have a way to make you lively again." The woman smiled ambiguously. Qin Feiyong was speechless. He thought that this woman would stop after admitting it, but he didn't expect her actions to be even more daring. "Young Master Li is here. Young Master Wang is here. Young Master Yun is here. Young Master Mo is here." Not long later, 4 young men walked into the Heaven Immortal Tower under the escort of a group of guards. They are the young masters of the 4 great clans of Heaven Luo City. The woman sat beside Qin Feiyong and explained, "They came so quickly." Qin Feiyong was surprised. Of course, the richest people of the Heaven Immortal Tower are these hedonistic young masters of the great clans. So every time the Heavenly Immortal Wine is auctioned, the manager of the Heaven Immortal Tower will immediately send them a message. The woman said, "That's true. With these people, the Heavenly Immortal Wine can be auctioned for a higher price." Qin Feiyong nodded. The woman said, "And they have their own VIP rooms in the Heaven Immortal Tower?" "Their own?" Qin Feiyong was stunned. "It's the VIP rooms that the Heaven Immortal Tower specially set up for them. The top 10 heaven ranking disciples of the Heaven Cloud Mountain also have them. They are all on the top floor." The woman said in a low voice. Qin Feiyong said in surprise, "They have such treatment?" Of course. The 4 great clans are rich. The heaven ranking disciples might not be as rich as them, but they have good talent. Each of them is a monster in the Eastern Tomb. The Heaven Immortal Tower naturally has to give them special treatment. Other than them, there are also a few people with power and influence who also have their own VIP rooms. The woman said. Qin Feiyong shook his head. It seems that the Heaven Immortal Tower is quite snobbish. Which business person isn't snobbish? The woman pouted. Qin Feiyong smiled and didn't say anything else. He looked at the 4 young masters. The 4 of them had arrogant looks on their faces. They didn't care about the people in the hall and directly headed to the top floor. Subsequently, many people rushed over. They were basically all young people. They wore gorgeous clothes and had an extraordinary aura. Behind them there were also small followers. However, compared to the 4 young masters in front, they seemed much more humble. Other than the exclusive VIP rooms, the rest were already full. So no matter what their identity or background was, they could only stand in the hall or the corridor upstairs. Why don't I see any heaven-ranking disciples? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. There were quite a number of Heaven Cloud Mountain disciples. But he didn't see any heaven-ranking disciples. These heaven-ranking disciples have always liked to pretend to be mysterious, so they won't come in through the door. Usually, they will be directly teleported to their exclusive VIP rooms. Now they might already be sitting in the VIP rooms. The woman said. That's true. Qin Feiyong nodded his head. Thinking back to when he stayed in the Nine Heavens Palace for so long, he only saw Feng Zihan and Yu Zijia. As for the other 8, he didn't even know their names, let alone their looks. Brother, your side is still empty. Can I sit here? Suddenly, a purple-robed youth walked to Qin Feiyong's side and said with a smile. Because the woman was now sitting beside Qin Feiyong, the opposite side was empty. Qin Feiyong was stunned and raised his head to look at the youth. The youth was about 1.8 meters tall and had a dignified appearance. He had an extraordinary aura and a gentle smile on his face, looking very sunny. Don't worry, I won't disturb you. And in order to express my gratitude, I will pay for all your expenses in the Heaven Immortal Tower today. The purple-robed youth smiled. Qin Feiyong glanced at the woman beside him and then at the purple-robed youth. He smiled and asked, Is that so? You must keep your word. The purple-robed youth patted his chest and said, "All right, have a seat." Qin Feiyang nodded his head. "Thank you." The purple-robed youth smiled gratefully. Such things were happening in the entire Heaven Immortal Tower at this moment. Because the people who came later didn't have seats. But some people didn't want to stand, so they went to find others to squeeze in. "Aren't you young Master Zhang?" The woman sized up the purple-robed youth and asked in surprise. "Miss, you are?" The purple-robed youth looked at the woman suspiciously. "In the past, I even accompanied young Master Zhang to drink a few times. But young Master Zhang is a person of high status and has a short memory. It's normal that you don't remember." The woman said. "I see." The purple-robed youth immediately understood. This woman wasn't Qin Feiyang's close female friend. She was just a temporary companion. The purple-robed youth looked at Qin Feiyang and cupped his hands. "I'm Zhang Xiaoyang. May I know your name, brother?" "Pai Lupi." Qin Feiyang casually thought of a name. The purple-robed youth said, "Brotherly looks a little unfamiliar. You shouldn't be someone from Heaven Luo City, right?" "This is my first time here," Qin Feiyang said. "I see." The purple-robed youth nodded and didn't say anything else. He raised his head and looked at the highest level, his eyes filled with anticipation. Chapter 2284. The woman asked, "Young master, do you know about Zhang Xiaoyang's family background?" "I'm not sure." Qin Feiyang shook his head. Zhang Xiaoyang's family is also very amazing, second only to the 4 major families in Heaven Luo City. However, Zhang Xiaoyang is not a direct descendant of the Zhang family, so his status in the Zhang family is not very high. The woman secretly said, "Why are you telling me this?" Qin Feiyang looked at her suspiciously. Although Zhang Xiaoyang's status is not high, he is after all a member of the Zhang family. If young master wants to establish a foothold in Heaven Luo City, you can make friends with him. The woman said. Qin Feiyang was stunned. She actually helped him find a way out? Isn't this woman a little too kind-hearted? The woman seemed to have seen through Qin Feiyang's doubts and secretly laughed. "I can't possibly earn your 100 million divine crystals for free." Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. This woman was quite interesting. Dong! At this moment, the bell rang again. The entire Heaven Immortal Tower instantly fell into dead silence. "It has finally begun," Zhang Xiaoyang murmured. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and looked at Zhang Xiaoyang suspiciously. Did he want the immortal wine so much? Creak. On the top floor, one of the doors opened and a middle-aged man walked out in large strides. It was the steward of the Heaven Immortal Tower. The steward turned around and closed the door. Walking to the corridor, he glanced at everyone and smiled. "I believe everyone is very puzzled at this moment. Why are we auctioning the immortal wine in advance?" Everyone nodded. "Actually, I don't know either. This is the tower head's order. I'm just following it. And this time we are auctioning 10 bottles of immortal wine at once." The steward said. "What? 10 bottles?" Everyone was dumbfounded. Auctioning 10 bottles at once, this was the first time this had happened. The steward smiled. "Why don't you talk nonsense? Same old rules, the highest bidder wins. Let's begin. 1 million. 2 million. 5 million. 10 million. As soon as the steward's voice fell, the voices of people calling out bids continuously. All of them seemed to have gone crazy. 10 bottles, this is a bit over the budget. Zhang Xiaoyang looked at the steward, his brows tightly furrowed. Qin was also surprised. How many bottles does the Heaven Immortal Tower usually auctions? 1 bottle. It's never more than 2 bottles. Before the woman could answer, Zhang Xiaoyang spoke first. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Then why are you taking out 10 pots to auction this time?" "I don't know." Zhang Xiaoyang and the woman shook their heads at the same time. They were also puzzled. "Don't care so much about why. Today you must get me all 10 bottles of immortal wine." Hua Yi's voice resounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. If I go out, I'll have to pay the bill myself. Wouldn't that be too convenient for you?" Hua Yi snickered. Qin Feiyang's face darkened, and he said disdainfully, "You're a half-step Undying Realm expert. You actually hid in the castle for such a small profit. Don't you feel ashamed?" Don't provoke me. It's useless. Hui said indifferently. Fine. I'll keep my word. I'll treat you to a drink. But I still feel that this matter is a bit unusual. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. How is it unusual? Hui was suspicious. Think about it. Why did the Heaven Immortal Tower change the previous rules and auction it today? And 10 bottles at once? Qin Feiyang pondered. Hearing you say that, it's a bit strange. I feel that the Heaven Immortal Tower did it deliberately. Hui said. Qin Feiyang said. And I feel that this is a bait. Bait? Hui was surprised. Qin Feiyang's eyes flickered, and he asked secretly, do you think it's a bait? Nonsense. The Tower Master of the Heaven Immortal Tower is the granddaughter of the Eastern Tomb Treasure Pavilion's Pavilion Master. This Pavilion Master is also our ally. How could she possibly set a trap to lure us? Hui said. I hope it's nonsense. Qin Feiyang mumbled. During the conversation, the price had already soared to 500 million divine crystals. But what was worth mentioning was that no one in the VIP rooms on the top floor had spoken yet. Zhang Xiaoyang sighed. The real competition has yet to begin. The woman beside Qin Feiyang also nodded in agreement. Just as the price soared to 1 billion, there was finally some movement in the VIP rooms on the top floor. Why is it that every time, there are so many trash who don't know what's good for them coming to join in the fun? Young Master Li, please don't take offense. Think about it this way. If there weren't these trash, how could the strength of our 4 great clans be displayed? Young Master Mo's words are reasonable. In this world, only green leaves can set off the beauty of fresh flowers. Laughter filled with contempt echoed in the Heaven Immortal Tower and didn't dissipate for a long time. Hearing these words, the people below couldn't help but have a trace of anger in their eyes. Trash? Green leaves? Even if it was the 4 great clans, they couldn't humiliate others like this. So what if it's the 4 great clans? We, the top 10 on the Heaven ranking, have never put you in our eyes. Don't say that I look down on you. You hedonistic sons can only show off in front of ordinary people. Another disdainful voice sounded. These people were the disciples of the Heaven ranking. They indeed had the capital to look down on the 4 great clans. Perhaps their family background and power couldn't be compared to the 4 great clans, but in terms of talent, they could completely crush any youth in the Eastern Tomb. Damn. We haven't even targeted you and you're already targeting us. Are the disciples of the Heaven ranking very powerful? You're just a bunch of poor people who rely on the Heavenly Cloud Mountain to eat and drink. What are you if you want to leave the Heavenly Cloud Mountain? You might be worse than a stray dog on the street. In terms of talent we can't compare to you, but in terms of wealth we can smash you to death. What are you so arrogant for? The 4 young masters weren't afraid at all and brazenly humiliated the disciples of the Heaven ranking. At the same time, they vividly displayed their hedonistic nature. I'm rich. You can't earn as much money as I do in a few lifetimes. You can only be envious and jealous. Zhang Xiaoyang coldly looked at the VIP rooms and snorted. You're all trash. Seeing that the situation was getting worse, the steward hurriedly said with a smile, everyone, please don't forget the important matter. We're now auctioning the Heavenly Immortal Wine. That's right, that's right. Let's get down to business. I almost lost my head because of these Heaven ranking paupers. I'll bid 1 billion. I'll bid 2 billion. I'll bid 3 billion. The 3 of you don't give these Heaven ranking paupers a chance. Just bid 10 billion. A mere 10 billion is too much for us Heaven ranking disciples? 11 billion. 12 billion. A new round of competition began again. But this time the people below were basically just supporting characters. No one spoke again. 2 sides. The hedonistic disciples' side. The Heaven ranking disciples' side. The competition was extremely fierce. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, each one is more prodigal than the other. Wrong. Zhang Xiaoyang shook his head. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang looked at Zhang Xiaoyang curiously. Zhang Xiaoyang said, these hedonistic disciples all have the support of their families behind them. The support of their families? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Yes. The patriarchs of the 4 major families all want their sons to marry into the treasure pavilion. So no matter how much they squander here, the 4 major families will fully support them. As for the heaven-ranking disciples of Tianyun Mountain, they have the same purpose. But in terms of financial resources, they really can't compete with the four major families. So for a long time, the two sides have formed a deep grudge. In short, you look down on me and I look down on you, Zhang Xiaoyang said. Qin Feiyang asked, "What about your Zhang family?" "My Zhang family?" Zhang Xiaoyang murmured and looked up at the corridor on the 6th floor. On the corridor, a young man in black stood with an arrogant face and two guards behind him. Qin Feiyang looked up and asked suspiciously, "Who is he?" "He's the young master of our Zhang family, Zhang Xiaofeng. In front of the four major families, even he doesn't dare to interrupt, let alone me." Zhang Xiaoyang laughed self-deprecatingly. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. It seemed that this person's status in the Zhang family was not very high. Moreover, his relationship with the direct descendants of the Zhang family was not very good. Otherwise, he wouldn't be sitting opposite him now. Soon, the price of 10 bottles of fairy wine rose to 50 billion. This price is about right. In the past, the highest price of a bottle of fairy wine was 5 billion. But judging from their attitude, they will continue to compete. People whispered, 5 billion for a bottle of fairy wine? It's really more expensive than bejeweled nectar. Qin Feiyang was speechless. The price was raised by this group of people. Fairy wine is indeed good, but it's not worth 5 billion divine gems. Zhang Xiaoyang shook his head. Qin Feiyang looked at Zhang Xiaoyang in surprise. Finally, he met a more rational person. When the price soared to 60 billion, the heaven roll finally stopped. Why did the heaven roll popper stop? Continue. I like to use money to humiliate you. Hurry up, hurry up. The four young masters clamored. We, the heaven roll disciples, rely on talent and strength to speak. You fools who only know how to eat and wait for death won't understand. The heaven roll disciples retorted. What are you pretending for? Don't you know that wealth equals strength? You're only at this level. Forget it. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Young Master Li, Young Master Amo, Young Master Wang, why don't you give it to me this time? I'll withdraw from the next competition. Young Master Yun said through the door. This, Young Master Li and the other two were a little hesitant. Young Master Yun said unhappily, "We've been brothers for many years. Can't you agree to such a small request?" "Fine. I'll withdraw. But you have to remember that you owe me a favor today." Young Master Li said. "Since you've said so, I'll withdraw too. Treat me to a drink later." Young Master Amo followed. "Since Young Master Li and Young Master Amo have withdrawn, then I won't compete." Young Master Wang hesitated for a while and said with a smile, "Thank you." Young Master Yun was overjoyed and said, "Manager, announce the result." Chapter 2285. The steward smiled, glanced at the people below and asked, "Is there anyone else who wants to bid?" No one answered. Actually, it wasn't that no one wanted to offend these rich kids. After all, the forces behind these rich kids were very powerful. Manager, forget it. Why don't you think about it? Who would be so insensible? Besides, you guys have already earned a lot of divine crystals. You should be satisfied. Young Master Yun's arrogant voice sounded. The manager smiled and was about to announce the result. But at this time, Zhang Xiaoyang, who was sitting opposite Qin Feiyang, gritted his teeth and stood up. 1 billion. Everyone present immediately turned to look at him. Everyone's face was filled with disbelief. There was actually someone who dared to compete with young Master Yun? Qin Feiyang also looked at Zhang Xiaoyang in shock. How much courage did one need to compete with the people of the four great families? The whole place was dead silent. The manager lowered his head and looked at Zhang Xiaoyang with a look of disbelief. Wait, isn't he Zhang Xiaoyang of the Zhang family? He doesn't seem to be a direct descendant of the Zhang family. What do you mean by seems? He isn't. He's just a small character from the side family. Then why does he dare to go against young Master Yun? You have to know that even Zhang Xiaofeng, a direct descendant, doesn't dare to say anything in front of young Master Yun. The dead silence was quickly broken. Everyone whispered to each other and discussed animatedly. On the top floor, young Master Yun's voice also didn't sound for a long time. He naturally knew a little about Zhang Xiaoyang. A mere branch descendant of the Zhang family actually dared to interfere. Was this a dream? The manager came back to his senses and sorted out his emotions. He smiled and said, "Young Master Zhang Xiaoyang has bid 61 billion. Is there anyone else who wants to increase the price?" "Zhang Xiaoyang, what are you doing? Do you have so many divine crystals?" Young Master Yun's voice rang out, bringing with it an icy chill. Obviously, Zhang Xiaoyang's behavior made him very angry. Zhang Xiaoyang took a deep breath and looked at the VIP room where young Master Yun was. "Young Master Yun, this is the Heaven Immortal Tower, not your house. Whether I have so many divine crystals or not, what does it have to do with you? How dare you?" Before he finished speaking, a loud shout was heard. However, this shout did not come from young Master Yun. It came from Zhang Xiaofeng, who was standing in the corridor of the 6th floor. Zhang Xiaofeng angrily jumped down and landed in front of Zhang Xiaoyang. He raised his hand and ruthlessly slapped Zhang Xiaoyang's face. Pa! A bright red palm print suddenly appeared. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Half of his face was swollen, which showed how powerful the slap was. The two guards behind Zhang Xiaofeng also looked at Zhang Xiaoyang angrily. In the face of this sudden scene, Qin Feiyang was quite astonished. Although Zhang Xiaoyang's status in the Zhang family wasn't high, they shouldn't treat him like this. With so many people watching, how embarrassing would that be? But, after slapping Zhang Xiaofeng still seemed to be angry. He grabbed Zhang Xiaoyang's clothes again and roared, "Are you crazy? He actually dared to oppose the Yun family? Do you know what consequences this will bring to our Zhang clan?" Zhang Xiaoyang looked at him expressionlessly. Zhang Xiaofeng was burning with anger and shouted, "Kneel down and apologize to young Master Yun right now." Zhang Xiaoyang still turned a deaf ear. Zhang Xiaofeng was furious. "Young Master, there are too many people here. We'll talk when we get back." Seeing this, the two guards hurriedly said in a low voice. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaofeng glanced around and immediately kicked Zhang Xiaoyang's lower abdomen. Puff! Zhang Xiaoyang spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. He was in so much pain that his face was covered in cold sweat. "When we get back, I'll take care of you slowly." Zhang Xiaofeng snorted coldly, then looked up at young Master Yun's VIP room and said with a flattering smile, "Brother Yun, I'm really sorry. The dog at home is not strict enough. Please forgive me." Everyone was used to this scene as if they were already used to it. However, Qin Feiyang couldn't help but frown. Although he was afraid of the Yun family, he shouldn't be so humble. Stairs. There was no movement from young Master Yun's VIP room. Zhang Xiaofeng was extremely nervous. He bowed and said, "Brother Yun, I'm really sorry. When I get back, I'll teach him a good lesson." "All right. For your sake, I won't pursue this matter this time. But you have to remember that since it's a dog, it must be locked up properly. Otherwise, it will bring disaster to your Zhang family." Young Master Yun said lightly, "Don't worry, there won't be a next time." Zhang Xiaofeng heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the restaurant manager. He smiled apologetically and said, "Just take it as a joke. I'm sorry." After that, he turned to the two guards and shouted, "Take him back." "Yes." The two guards replied and then walked toward Zhang Xiaoyang. "Get lost." But at this moment, Zhang Xiaoyang suddenly stood up and stared at the two guards and shouted. The two guards were a little confused. Zhang Xiaofeng couldn't help but be taken aback. He immediately shouted, "How dare you shout in front of us? Shut up." But before Zhang Xiaofeng could finish, Zhang Xiaoyang shouted and roared, "You only dare to abuse your power in front of me. What did you say?" Zhang Xiaofeng said word by word, his face extremely gloomy. "Did I say something wrong? Ask the people here who doesn't know your character. If you don't have the ability, get out of here." 80 billion. Young Master Yun said. 81 billion. Zhang Xiaoyang raised the price again without hesitation. But there was a trace of nervousness in his eyes. Even sweat could be faintly seen on his forehead. 90 billion. Young Master Yun shouted. Zhang Xiaoyang said again 90 billion. But before he finished, Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled, saying lightly 100 billion. What? 100 billion? Everyone was shocked. Wait, that didn't seem to be Zhang Xiaoyang's voice. Everyone immediately scanned the hall. Who was bidding? Qin Feiyong looked at the crowd and said with a faint smile, "Is there a problem?" "It's him?" Everyone stared at Qin Feiyong, their eyes full of disbelief. Zhang Xiaoyang, Zhang Xiaofeng, and the woman sitting next to Qin Feiyong were also stunned. Was he challenging young Master Yun by increasing the price by 10 billion? Wasn't this a little too extravagant? Qin Feiyong looked at the steward and said with a smile, "If there's no problem, let's continue." "Interesting." The steward mumbled and asked with a smile, "May I know young master's name?" "Pai Lupi." Qin Feiyong said. "So it's young Master Li. I've heard a lot about you. Nice to meet you." Young Master Li bid 100 billion. Is there anyone else? In fact, he had never heard of the name Pai Lupi. It was completely a polite remark. The Heaven Immortal Tower was silent for a moment. Young Master Yun said in a low voice, "Pai Lupi, are you challenging me?" "Challenging? No. Young Master Yun's identity is noble. I'm just a nobody. How would I dare to challenge you? I'm just participating in a fair competition." "I think young Master Yun wouldn't mind, right?" "If young Master Yun minds, I'll withdraw immediately as long as you say the word," Qin Feiyong said with a smile. This is a ruthless person. Yeah. Although it seems like he's complimenting young Master Yun, he's actually checkmating him. If young Master Yun were to really say that he minded, it would be extremely humiliating. People muttered. "Because you're the third person to lend me a helping hand in all these years," Zhang Xiaoyang thought to himself. "Who are the first and second?" Qin Feiyong was curious. "My parents," Zhang Xiaoyang said. Qin Feiyong suddenly came to a realization and said to himself, "I didn't do it to help you, because I really did intend to bid from the beginning." "It doesn't matter, because this won't affect our cooperation," Zhang Xiaoyang said. "Cooperation?" Qin Feiyong smiled and looked up at the top floor. He said indifferently, "I think it's boring to use divine crystals to bid. Why don't we use soul stones?" "What? Soul stones? This person is crazy." The Heaven Immortal Tower was in an uproar. The manager's face was also full of shock. Using soul stones to bid. This was something that he had never thought of before. No one was willing to use soul stones to trade. Qin Feiyong's gaze turned and landed on the manager. He smiled and said, "Manager, can I?" "This." The manager hesitated for a moment and nodded with a smile. "As long as both of you have no objections," Qin Feiyong said. "Young Master Yun, your family is powerful. You shouldn't object, right?" In the VIP room, young Master Yun frowned. "Young Master, this won't do. Although our Yun family is rich, we don't have many soul stones." "Yes. You have to think twice, don't be tricked by him. The most important thing is that if we use soul stones to trade, the advantage of being a disciple on the heaven list will be there." "That's right. Disciples on the heaven list can receive a large number of soul stones every month," a group of guards hurriedly said. The source of soul stones was the spirit vein. The spirit vein in Easttoon was similar to the North region. It was basically under the control of the heavenly cloud mountain and the treasure pavilion. Therefore, even the four great families didn't have much. "Young Master Yun, if you don't say, I'll take it that you agree? Then I'll go first. 10 billion soul stones." Qin Feiyong smiled. "What? 10 billion soul stones at once?" Everyone was petrified on the spot. Even a disciple on the heaven list wouldn't be able to do such a big thing. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, "Young Master Yun, it's your turn." "Young Master, please think twice." A group of guards hurriedly knelt on the ground and shouted. 10 billion soul stones, the Yun family could also afford it, but the other party was full of confidence. Who knew how high the price would soar in the end? Once it exceeded the range that the Yun family could afford, it would shake the foundation of the Yun family. This was no small matter. Therefore, they couldn't take this risk. At this moment, young Master Yun was extremely irritated. The other party was obviously provoking him on purpose. How could he tolerate this? But these guards were right. The soul stones were the foundation of the Yun family and couldn't be touched. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly, looked at the steward and said, "It seems that we can announce the result." The steward hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "All right, since there are no objections, then wait. Did I agree to use soul stones to bid?" Young Master Yun said angrily. "Young Master Yun, this is your fault. I asked you just now, but you didn't say that you didn't agree," Qin Feiyang said. "But I didn't say that I agreed." Young Master Yun said in a deep voice. "You didn't say it, but when I asked you, you didn't say anything. Isn't this the same as admitting it?" Young Master Yun, don't be a sore loser. This isn't just a loss of face for you. It's a loss of face for your entire Yun family, Qin Feiyang said. Young Master Yun roared. "Don't be presumptuous. See, you're angry out of humiliation. There's no need. If you lose, you lose. It's not the last auction. There will be plenty of chances in the future. Why bother?" Qin Feiyang laughed. Young Master Yun suddenly stood up, his body full of killing intent. "Young Master, don't be rash. This is the Heaven Immortal Tower. You can't fight." The group of guards hurriedly comforted him. "Who?" Young Master Yun glanced at the group of guards, took a deep breath and said, "Fine, Pai Lupi, right? You're good. Let's wait and see." "Thank you for admitting it, Young Master Yun." Qin Feiyang cupped his hands and smiled. "Then I'll announce the result. The winner of the 10 pots of immortal wine this time is Pai Lupi, Young Master Li." The steward laughed loudly. 10 billion soul stones, amazing. This person's background is definitely not small, someone said. The others also nodded. The steward looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Young Master Li, please come up and trade with our tower master." "What? Miss Immortal is also here. Why didn't you say so earlier? If I knew that it was a face-to-face trade with Miss Immortal, I would have sold everything to get these 10 pots of immortal wine." Everyone's face was full of regret, especially those heaven-ranking disciples and Young Master Yun. This was a rare opportunity to be alone with Miss Immortal. "Miss Immortal," Qin Feiyang muttered, jumped and landed next to the steward. Frankly speaking, he was also a little curious about this woman. Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Qin Feiyang's back, walked to Zhang Xiaoyang's side, and asked in a low voice, "Zhang Xiaoyang, do you know him?" "I don't know him." Zhang Xiaoyang shook his head. "If you don't know him, you're sitting with him?" Zhang Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows. "Do we have to know each other just because we're sitting together?" "Wait. I'm no longer a member of the Zhang family. What right do you have to meddle in my affairs?" After Zhang Xiaoyang finished speaking, he returned to his seat and ignored Zhang Xiaofeng. Your wings have hardened, right? You think you can fly, right? Fine, wait for me, I'll make you regret it." After Zhang Xiaofeng finished speaking, he turned and left angrily with 2 guards. The woman glanced at Zhang Xiaofeng, looked at Zhang Xiaoyang and said, "Young Master Zhang, are you serious?" "Yes." Zhang Xiaoyang nodded. "Then you have to be careful in the future." The woman smiled and turned to look at Qin Feiyang. An imperceptible light flashed in her eyes. On the top floor. The steward pushed open the door and said with a smile, "Young Master, please come in." Qin Feiyang scanned the room. On the ground there was a layer of fluffy white carpet, spotless. On the left, there was an exquisite tea table and 3 chairs neatly placed. On the tea table there was a set of jade tea set. A woman in purple with her back to the door was sitting in front of the tea table, elegantly brewing tea. On the left and right of the woman in purple there were 2 young women standing. One was wearing a red dress, the other was wearing a green dress. "Miss, he's here." The woman in green glanced at Qin Feiyang outside the door and whispered with a smile. The woman in purple said, "Then invite him in." "Okay." The woman in green turned and walked quickly to the door. Looking at Qin Feiyang, she laughed and said, "What are you standing here for? Come in." Qin Feiyang smiled and then entered the room under the jealous eyes of countless people. The woman in green looked at the steward and said, "Go and bring 10 pots of immortal wine." "Yes." The steward nodded and turned to leave. The woman in green also closed the door and ran to Qin Feiyang's side. She led Qin Feiyang to the tea table and said with a smile, "Young Master, please sit opposite." Qin Feiyang nodded, walked to the opposite side of the woman in purple, and then looked at her. Immediately, there was a trace of amazement in his eyes. This woman was about 20 years old. Her eyebrows were picturesque, her skin was ice and jade bones, and her figure was perfect and flawless. It was no exaggeration to say that she could compete with the mermaid princess. Young Master Li? The woman looked up at Qin Feiyong and asked. Qin Feiyong nodded and asked, Miss Immortal? The woman also nodded. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and smiled. Nice to meet you. But then, his gaze was attracted by the teapot in the woman's hand. Chapter 2287. Smoke rose from the teapot, and the fragrance of the tea wafted into his nose. He had never smelled this tea fragrance before. There was a kind of fragrance of flowers and plants that made one intoxicated. Looking at the tea leaves in the teapot, they were like tender buds wrapped in dew, crystal clear and emitting a hazy treasure light. Miss Sky Fairy poured a cup and pushed it in front of Qin Feiyong, smiling. Young master, try it? Qin Feiyong glanced at her, picked up the teacup, put it at the tip of his nose and sniffed it, then put it at the corner of his mouth and tasted it carefully. His eyes lit up. As soon as the tea entered his mouth, his entire person seemed to be bathed in the spring breeze, as if he was standing on a grassland in spring. There was an indescribable enjoyment. Miss Sky Fairy said, Young master, how do you feel? Not bad. Qin Feiyong nodded. This tea was the best of the best. But sometimes even if he knew, he had to pretend not to know. For example, he couldn't see through the woman in front of him at all. So, he didn't want to be seen through by the other party. It's just not bad? Miss Sky Fairy looked at him in shock. Qin Feiyong smiled. To be honest, I don't know much about tea. No wonder. Miss Sky Fairy nodded in realization. You brat, you really don't know how to appreciate favors. Do you know what tea this is? This is called Heavenly Immortal Dew. It was personally cultivated by Mississippi. It can be said that it is even more precious than Heavenly Immortal Dew. In the entire East Tomb, there are less than 10 people who have drunk Heavenly Immortal Dew. The two young women looked at Qin Feiyong with dissatisfaction and said, Is that so? Then I'll have to drink a few more cups. Qin Feiyong held the teacup and drank it in one gulp. Drinking like this is a reckless waste of natural resources. Miss, I told you not to treat him with Heavenly Immortal Dew. You didn't believe me. Now you see. He is a person who doesn't know what's good for him. The two of them were furious. Miss Sky Fairy looked at Qin Feiyong and scolded. Little red, little green, don't be rude. Miss. The two of them were dissatisfied. You're not done, right? Miss Sky Fairy stared at the two of them. The two of them lowered their heads and pouted. Miss Heaven Fairy looked at Qin Feiyong and smiled. I have spoiled them too much and have no manners. Please don't take offense. No. Qin Feiyong hurriedly waved his hand, glanced at the two and asked, They are my personal maids. However, I have never treated them as maids. I have always seen them as younger sisters. Miss Celestial Immortal smiled. I see. Qin Feiyong nodded. It seemed that this woman's character was not bad. This was because a normal person would never treat their servant girl so well. Dong! At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Come in, Miss Celestial said. The door opened, and the steward walked in, saying, Young miss, the Celestial Immortal intoxication has been brought. Miss Fairy pointed at the tea table and said, Leave it here and leave. Yes. The steward respectfully responded and walked to the tea table. With a wave of his hand, 10 pots of Celestial Immortal intoxication appeared neatly on the tea table. Then he turned and left the room, closing the door. Qin Feiyong glanced at the 10 pots of wine and thought, Fire Lotus, prepare 10 billion soul stones for me. 10 billion soul stones to buy these 10 pots of wine? Aren't you all too prodigal? In the castle's hall. Hearing Qin Feiyong's words, Fire Lotus immediately glared at Hui angrily. Hui was leisurely lying on a recliner, laughing. I'm so angry. Fire Lotus stomped her feet, turned around, and ran into Qin Feiyong's cultivation room. Outside, Miss Celestial Immortal sipped her tea, looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Young Master Li, I can give these 10 pots of Celestial Immortal intoxication to you. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Give it to him? This was too unexpected. However, was there such a good thing in the world? Of course. There's also a condition. Miss Celestial Immortal put down her teacup and said, I knew it. Qin Feiyong muttered. Miss Celestial Immortal's eyes flashed. and said, "Lil Red." The red-clothed woman immediately took out a crystal from her bosom and placed it in front of Qin Feiyang. "This is..." Qin Feiyang's pupils contracted. This was actually a Heaven's Eye stone. Why did this woman give him a Heaven's Eye stone? Could it be that she knew his identity? But that's not right. If she really knew his identity, there was no need to use the Heaven's Eye stone to verify it. Wouldn't it be fine to just lay all her cards on the table? Miss Celestial Immortal said, "As long as you hold this Heaven's Eye stone, I will give you 10 pots of celestial intoxication." "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang frowned. Miss Celestial Immortal said, "I have to know who the person I'm giving the gift to is, right? Am I not Pai Lupi?" Qin Feiyang said, "Are you really Pai Lupi? Is this really your true face?" Miss Celestial Immortal asked back. Qin Feiyang stared at Miss Celestial Immortal without blinking. What did he want to see from this woman's expression? However, after looking for a long time, he didn't catch any clues. "Qin Dage, get ready." At this time, Fire Lotus's voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. Qin Feiyang calmed down, took out an interspatial ring from the castle, threw it on the tea table, and said with a smile, "I'm not interested in playing this kind of childish game with you. Count it." "Is young Masterly guilty?" Miss Celestial Immortal glanced at the interspatial ring and looked at Qin Feiyang with a trace of provocation in her eyes. "Guilty?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and said with a faint smile, "If you say so." Miss Celestial Immortal raised her eyebrows and said, "Xiao Hong, count it." "Okay." The woman in red stepped forward, grabbed the interspatial ring, and poured her consciousness into it. A moment later, she nodded to Miss Celestial Immortal. Qin Feiyang immediately stood up and put away the 10 pots of Celestial Immortal wine. He cupped his hands and smiled. "Thank you for your hospitality, Mississippi. Goodbye. I won't see you out." Miss Celestial Immortal smiled faintly. Qin Feiyang nodded to the two maids again, then walked to the door without looking back. He opened the door and strode away. "Miss, what are you doing? First, you entertained him with the Celestial Dew, and then you plan to give him the Celestial Immortal wine for free. Don't tell me you've taken a fancy to him?" Xiao Hong and Xiao Lu looked at Miss Celestial Immortal suspiciously. Miss Celestial Immortal said, "Do you know why I'm auctioning 10 pots of Celestial Immortal wine today?" Xiao Hong said, "We asked you a long time ago, but you refused to tell us. How could we not know? Now I can tell you. My goal is to lure Qin Feiyang and Hui Yi out." Miss Celestial Immortal said. "What? Lure them out? Miss, what are you trying to do? Do you really like them? Do you want them to be your husband? You can't do that." The two of them were incomparably anxious. Miss Celestial Immortal's face darkened. She directly gave the two of them a slap on the head and said angrily, "I really want to break open your heads and see what's inside." The two girls laughed dryly. Miss Celestial Immortal said, "I'm luring them out to settle the score with them. No one has ever dared to cause trouble in my Heaven Immortal Tower, let alone tear it down." "I see." The two girls were enlightened. "What else do you think?" Miss Celestial Immortal glared at the two of them. The two of them smiled embarrassedly. Xiao Hong asked curiously, "Miss, why did you think of this plan to lure the snake out of its hole?" "According to the manager, that person called Hui Yi is addicted to alcohol. So I thought that using these 10 pots of Celestial Immortal wine should be able to lure him out. As for that Qin Feiyang, although he doesn't drink, I heard from my grandmother that the Northern Region Vice Pavilion Master told her that this person is a person who knows a lot about tea. So I took out the Celestial Immortal Dew." Miss Celestial Immortal said, "So all of this is your trick, miss?" Xiao Hong said, "Do you know how to speak?" "What trick? How can you say that about your miss?" Miss Celestial Immortal glared at Xiao Hong angrily. Xiao Hong giggled and said, "Miss, don't be angry. I'll try not to tell the truth in the future." "Try not to tell the truth?" Miss Celestial Immortal's face darkened. Wrong. "Miss, don't be angry. When I see you angry, I get nervous. When I get nervous, I always say the wrong thing." Xiao Hong hurriedly waved her hand, but her face was full of laughter. Miss Tianxian shook her head helplessly and said, "Although the plan was not bad, the result was as expected. I can't see through this Pai Lupi at all." Xiao Lu and Xiao Hong looked at each other and said, "Someone that you can't see through, miss, is definitely not simple. So I'm thinking, is he Qin Feiyang or Huai? Also, when he faced me, he didn't show the slightest bit of humility or fear. He didn't even have any feelings for me. Do you think I'm not good-looking? Miss Tianxian looked at the two of them and asked. Good-looking, of course you're good-looking. Is the number one beauty of our Eastern tomb a joke? I reckon that this person might have a problem with his sexual orientation. I think so too. Xiao Hong and Xiao Hong discussed seriously. Achoo! In the hall outside, Qin Feiyang was walking towards Zhang Xiaoyang when he suddenly sneezed. Did someone miss me? He rubbed his nose and walked to the dining table. Young master. The woman who accompanied him was even more enthusiastic. She wanted nothing more than to crawl into Qin Feiyang's embrace. The people around were still looking at Qin Feiyang with jealousy. Isn't it just a woman? Is there such an exaggeration? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Brotherly, there's something you don't know. This Miss Tianxian is publicly acknowledged as the number one beauty of Eastern Tomb, and the goddess in the hearts of countless people. How can they not be jealous? Zhang Xiaoyang chuckled. Goddess, Qin Feiyang muttered, took out 2 pots of Tianxian wine, placed them on the table, and said with a smile, these 2 pots are for you. Zhang Xiaoyang was slightly stunned, and hurriedly waved his hand and said, this won't do, how can I take your things for free? Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, although this is the first time you and I have met, it is fate that we met. Accept it. This, Zhang Xiaoyang looked at Qin Feiyang and the 2 pots of Tianxian wine, nodded and said, all right, I, Zhang Xiaoyang, will owe you a favor. If there is a chance in the future, I will definitely return it. We'll see. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Zhang Xiaoyang put away the 2 pots of Tianxian wine and couldn't wait to get up, and said with a smile, brotherly, I still have something urgent, see you later. Okay. Also settle the bill. Qin Feiyang nodded. That young Master Yun is narrow-minded. He won't let you go just like that. The woman warned. Really? Qin Feiyang chuckled and picked up the wine cup, preparing to drink. What are you doing? Don't go too far. But at this moment, a furious roar came from outside. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. Wasn't that Zhang Xiaoyang's voice? I'm giving you face, but you don't want it. Cripple him for me. Another extremely arrogant voice sounded. Zhang Xiaofeng? Qin Feiyang frowned. The woman said in a low voice, young master, you have already done your best for Zhang Xiaoyang. Don't meddle in other people's business. Hearing this, Qin Feiyang was silent for a while, and a faint smile gradually crept onto his face. That made sense. In Dongling he was just a passerby. There was no need to get involved in such troublesome matters. A painful scream rang out. It was Zhang Xiaoyang who was screaming. Give me back the celestial immortal wine. Following closely, Zhang Xiaoyang roared. You think a piece of trash like you is worthy of having the celestial immortal wine? Zhang Xiaofeng's mocking voice also sounded. Qin Feiyang's relaxed brows knitted together again. Young master, you have already given him the celestial immortal wine. As for whether he can keep it or not, it's his own business. Don't worry about it. The woman grabbed Qin Feiyang's hand and shook her head. Qin Feiyang looked at the woman and said, I find that you care about me more than usual. Of course. You are my patron. If I don't care about you, who will I care about? I still hope that the next time you come, you will reward me with 100 million divine gems. The woman laughed. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. He put down the wine glass and got up to walk towards the door of the restaurant. Alas! Seeing this, the woman shook her head helplessly. Outside on the street. At this moment there was a sea of people. In the middle of the crowd, Zhang Xiaofeng grabbed an interspatial ring and looked down at Zhang Xiaoyang who was lying on the ground. His face was full of contempt. Next to him, the eyes of the 2 guards were also shining with cold light. Looking at Zhang Xiaoyang again, his lower abdomen was bleeding and his face was pale. But more than that, there was anger. Although there were many people around, they were all watching coldly. No one stood out to speak up for Zhang Xiaoyang. Qin Feiyang stood behind the crowd and looked at the arrogant Zhang Xiaofeng. He was extremely disgusted. Just as Zhang Xiaoyang said, he was a bully who feared the strong. Zhang Xiaofeng glanced at Zhang Xiaoyang with disdain. He poured his divine thought into the interspatial ring and directly erased the blood contract with Zhang Xiaoyang. Then he dripped his blood on the ring to claim ownership. Then Zhang Xiaofeng checked the interspatial ring and took out 2 flagons. They were the 2 flagons of immortal wine that Qin Feiyang gave Zhang Xiaoyang. Zhang Xiaofeng squatted on the ground and said jokingly, "Do you really want immortal wine? Give it back to me, give it back to me," Zhang Xiaoyang roared hysterically. Bang! Zhang Xiaofeng dropped the flagons and the 2 flagons of immortal wine fell to the ground and smashed into pieces. The strong fragrance of the wine immediately drifted out. What a waste! Yeah. Even if you have a grudge, you shouldn't waste it like this. People murmured. Looking at the smashed flagons, Zhang Xiaoyang was dumbfounded. Then, he looked up and stared at Zhang Xiaofeng. He roared, "What are you doing? What am I doing? Don't you like immortal wine? I'll give you a chance now. Lick it clean bit by bit." Zhang Xiaofeng got up, stepped aside and glanced at the 2 guards. The 2 guards understood. They stepped forward, grabbed Zhang Xiaoyang's head, and forced him to the ground. "This is a bit too much." People murmured. "Immortal wine." Zhang Xiaoyang murmured and closed his eyes in pain. It was not easy to get these 2 flagons of immortal wine, but they were smashed into pieces just like that? How hateful. All of a sudden, he opened his eyes, which were full of killing intent. He said word by word, "Zhang Xiaofeng, I swear I will not let you go. How dare you threaten me? Break his limbs for me." Zhang Xiaofeng shouted. One of the guards released his hand and took out a dagger with a cruel smile on his face. "That's enough. Don't go too far." But at this time, a voice sounded behind the crowd. Zhang Xiaofeng raised his eyebrows, glanced at the crowd and shouted, "Who's talking? We're all from the same family. Is it necessary to be so ruthless?" The voice sounded again. Zhang Xiaofeng's eyes were like lightning. He immediately caught sight of the person who spoke. A cold light surged in his eyes and he said, "It's you." "Yes, it's me." "That's right." The person who spoke was Qin Feiyang. He didn't want to get involved in this matter. But seeing Zhang Xiaoyang being bullied like this, he really couldn't bear it, so he interrupted. "This has nothing to do with you. You'd better mind your own business." Zhang Xiaofeng said in a deep voice, "I don't mean to interfere. I'm just giving you a kind advice. After all, there's a saying that it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Just as Qin Feiyang spoke, the crowd in front of him automatically separated. Although he didn't want to interfere, others didn't think so. Everyone thought that he wanted to stand up for Zhang Xiaoyang, so they consciously made way for him. Similarly, Zhang Xiaofeng was the same. Since he didn't care, why did he interrupt? Did he think he was an idiot? Qin Feiyang looked at the crowd and said speechlessly, "I really don't mean to interfere." Everyone looked at him with disdain, as if to say that only a ghost would believe him. Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly and walked to the opposite side of Zhang Xiaofeng. Looking at the wine spilled all over the ground, he shook his head and said, 2 billion soul stones, smashed into pieces just like that. It's really heartbreaking. 10 bottles of immortal wine, 10 billion soul stones. 2 bottles naturally was 2 billion. Zhang Xiaofeng frowned and said, "You've already given it to him. This has nothing to do with you." Qin Feiyang said, "Who said I gave it to him? I'm temporarily keeping it for him." Huh. Zhang Xiaofeng was stunned. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, "I don't care about 2 bottles of immortal wine. Let him go, I won't make you compensate." Compensate? Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Qin Feiyang in shock and laughed. "Are you talking in your sleep? Don't be so rude." Qin Feiyang said with a faint smile, "I'm just being rude. What can you do? I didn't dare to cause trouble in the Heaven Immortal Tower just now. But now we're outside. You better not provoke me. Otherwise..." Zhang Xiaofeng's face was filled with a cold smile. "Otherwise what? I don't believe that you dare to disregard human life in broad daylight." Qin Feiyang said. "Provoking me?" Zhang Xiaofeng's eyes suddenly sank. "No. But if you want to think so, I don't care," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Zhang Xiaofeng clenched his hands and looked at the guard holding the dagger. Killing intent flashed in the guard's eyes. He immediately grabbed the dagger and stabbed it at Qin Feiyang's back. Qin Feiyang glanced at the guard and said to Zhang Xiaofeng, "It's not too late for him to stop now. What are you being arrogant for? You're just a low-stage divine lord. If I want to kill you, it's as easy as killing a chicken. Kill him for me." Zhang Xiaofeng couldn't hold it in anymore and shouted at the guard. Qin Feiyang's calmness and indifference from the beginning made him very unhappy. Sigh. It seems that I have no choice but to be the good guy this time. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. After saying that, he suddenly turned around and raised his hand to grab the dagger in the guard's hand. What? Everyone's eyes widened in shock. Grabbing a divine weapon with his bare hands? One must know that the dagger was a high-grade divine weapon. Could it be that he was wearing something on his hand? But on closer look, this person didn't wear anything on his hand. This scene was hard for everyone to accept. The guard was also dumbfounded. Grabbing a divine weapon with his bare hands. How strong was his physical body? But then an even more shocking scene appeared. Qin Feiyang suddenly exerted force. Accompanied by a loud clang, the dagger in the guard's hand was immediately shattered into pieces. Chapter 2289. Everyone's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Not only did he catch a divine artifact with his bare hands, he even crushed a high-grade divine artifact with his bare hands? Was he a monster? He was too ridiculously strong. Zhang Xiaofeng's face was also filled with disbelief. Zhang Xiaoyang raised his head and stared at Qin Feiyang in shock. Who would have thought that this sickly-looking young man would be so powerful? The entire place was dead silent. On the top floor of the Heaven Immortal Tower, in a room on the street, Miss Heaven Immortal stood in front of the half-closed window and looked at Qin Feiyang in the middle of the crowd below. Amazing! I really didn't expect him to have such strength. Little Red and Little Green were also there and they were both amazed. Miss Heaven Immortal's eyes revealed a strange light and she whispered, crushing a high-grade divine artifact with his bare hands, "Our Eastern Tomb doesn't have such a talent. Miss, you can't be thinking that he is Qin Feiyang again, right? I think you are a bit bewitched now, thinking that anyone you see is him. What do you know? Our Miss is feeling amorous. So it's like this, no wonder," the two women said meaningfully. Miss Heaven Immortal rolled her eyes. Below, the guard came back to his senses and suddenly retreated. His face was filled with fear. The other guard also decisively let go of Zhang Xiaoyang and stared at Qin Feiyang with vigilance. "You two are great success divine lords. Why are you afraid of him? A small success divine lord? Kill him for me," Zhang Xiaofeng shouted. The two looked at each other and immediately pounced at Qin Feiyang. "You want to die so badly? Then I will fulfill your wish." Qin Feiyang chuckled. An invisible force emerged and pounced towards the two of them. Soul destruction technique. The two immediately screamed and fell to the ground dead. What? They died just like that? How did he do it? Everyone was shocked. What was that invisible force? It actually killed two great success divine lords in an instant? The most important thing was, there were no wounds on the two's body. Two of the more courageous ones released their divine sense to check on the two of them. He wouldn't have known if he hadn't looked, but now that he did, his face couldn't help but turn pale. What is it? Everyone looked at them in surprise. Their souls. The two of them spoke with great difficulty, their faces filled with disbelief. Divine soul. When everyone heard this and saw that Qin Feiyang did not show any signs of anger, they all released their divine senses to check. This, in an instant. Everyone was dumbfounded. He had actually erased their divine souls. When they looked at Qin Feiyang again, everyone's eyes were filled with fear that could not be dispelled. He actually possessed a killing technique that could directly obliterate one's soul. His divine soul was indestructible and immortal. What he meant was that as long as one's soul existed, one would not die. Even if his physical body was destroyed, as long as a wisp of his divine soul remained, he could return to his peak step by step. On the contrary, if his divine soul were to dissipate, then even if he had a peerless divine pill, he would still be powerless to reverse the situation. Therefore, killing techniques that targeted the divine soul were what every living being feared. Just like Zhang Xiaofeng at this moment, he could no longer be arrogant. His face was pale as he trembled. He had never imagined that the other party would be such a terrifying person. The most important thing was, the other party did not seem to be afraid of his family background at all. Zhang Xiaoyang got up, looked at Qin Feiyang and bowed. "Thank you, Brother Li, for saving my life." Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "You are at least a beginner divine lord, why didn't you fight back?" Zhang Xiaoyang was a beginner divine lord, and the two guards were divine lords. Although they were not a match for the two of them, as a man how could he stand there and take a beating? Zhang Xiaoyang lowered his head in shame. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, "It seems that you have been bullied a lot in the Zhang family. Otherwise, you wouldn't even have the courage to do this." Zhang Xiaoyang became more and more ashamed. Qin Feiyang glanced at him, then turned to look at Zhang Xiaofeng, who was already paralyzed on the ground, and said helplessly, "I didn't play with you. I really didn't intend to interfere in the beginning. You were the one who was aggressive. I'm sorry, I was blind. It's my fault. I apologize to you," Zhang Xiaofeng hurriedly said. "You want to settle this with just an apology? How can there be such a simple thing in the world? Since you did something wrong, you naturally have to pay the price. Don't you think so?" Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Yes. I'm willing to compensate you for your loss." Zhang Xiaofeng nodded repeatedly. "That's more like it. Come, get up quickly. There are so many people watching. How can you be paralyzed on the ground?" Qin Feiyang stepped forward to help Zhang Xiaofeng up, his face full of smiles. "Don't be like this. I'm afraid." Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Qin Feiyang in fear. "Don't be afraid. Actually, I'm a good person. I'm not bragging. You can tell from the fact that I stood up for Zhang Xiaoyang. I'm very kind. Really. As long as you have a proper attitude, I will talk to you properly," Qin Feiyang said with a smile. "Good person. I really can't tell." Little Red and Little Green, who were standing beside Miss Sky Immortal, couldn't help but pout, their eyes full of disdain. Miss Sky Immortal had a smile on her face. "This person is really interesting." Qin Feiyang looked at Zhang Xiaofeng and said with a smile, "Shall we go to the Heaven Immortal Tower to sit down and talk? Or do you want to talk here?" "This?" Zhang Xiaofeng looked at Qin Feiyang with a panicked expression. He really couldn't understand what this person wanted to do. "Why don't we go to the Heaven Immortal Tower? We can find a private room and talk alone. I'm doing this for your own good. Look at how many people there are here. I don't want to embarrass you." Qin Feiyang chuckled. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaofeng's face changed and said with a flattering smile, "It's okay. I'm not afraid of being embarrassed. Let's talk here. Find a private room and talk alone?" If he were to torture him, he wouldn't be able to do anything. "All right, as you wish." Qin Feiyang nodded. "It's him, surround him." But suddenly, in the sky an angry roar sounded. Everyone raised their heads and saw a young man in luxurious clothes flying over with dozens of guards. Young Master Yun. Everyone's pupils constricted. Zhang Xiaofeng was stunned and immediately looked at Qin Feiyang. He laughed and said, "Young Master Yun has brought people here. You're finished. Brotherly, let's go." Zhang Xiaoyang also hurriedly went to Qin Feiyang's side and whispered, "Go." Qin Feiyang raised the corner of his mouth and looked at young Master Yun's group. Including young Master Yun, there were a total of more than 50 people. Young Master Yun was a beginner divine lord. The group of guards were all perfect divine lords. Such a lineup in Heaven Luo City indeed had the capital to be arrogant. But it was not enough for him. "Wait, isn't flying not allowed in Heaven Luo City?" Suddenly, Qin Feiyang turned to look at Zhang Xiaoyang and asked. That was in the past. Now that the city lord is dead, no one obeys this rule. "Brotherly, do you know how the city lord died?" Zhang Xiaoyang asked. "How did he die?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. "He was killed by two people called Qin Feiyang and Hui. These two people are arrogant. Hedonistic young masters like young Master Yun are simply not worth mentioning compared to them." Zhang Xiaoyang's face was full of admiration. "What do you mean?" Qin Feiyang said. Zhang Xiaoyang whispered, "Not only did they kill the city lord, but they also killed the law enforcement hallmaster of Heavenly Cloud Mountain. Don't you think they are arrogant?" "They are indeed arrogant." Qin Feiyang nodded, but he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. This Zhang Xiaoyang probably would never have thought that the so-called arrogant person in his words was standing in front of him. Young Master Yun flew over and stood in the sky arrogantly. He stared at Qin Feiyang and laughed. Do you still remember what I said to you? And then? Qin Feiyang laughed. This day next year will be the anniversary of your death. Kill him for me. Young Master Yun roared. A group of imperial bodyguards immediately swarmed towards Qin Feiyang to kill him. You want to kill me with such a motley crew? Aren't you looking down on me too much? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. An invisible force emerged again. Soul destruction technique. In an instant, following a series of cries of agony, the group of guards fell to the ground like fallen leaves. They died before they could figure out what was going on. This, young Master Yun's eyes widened in anger. What was going on? So many perfection divine lords had died in an instant. Was he seeing a ghost? The surrounding crowd, Zhang Xiaoyang and Zhang Xiaofeng, were also shocked. And this shock was even stronger than before. The previous two were only great success divine lords, but these people were all perfection divine lords. Their cultivation levels were 2 whole levels apart. But in the end it was still an instant kill. What level was this killing technique? Bang! 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 Bodies fell to the ground one after another. Their eyes were wide open, filled with fear before death. Everyone also came back to their senses. Zhang Xiaofeng's face turned pale. He smiled and said, "Brotherly, I'm sorry. I was just talking in my sleep. Please don't mind." Qin Feiyang raised his arm. Plop! Seeing this, Zhang Xiaofeng was so frightened that he knelt on the ground. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He shook his head helplessly and said, I just wanted to pat your shoulder and tell you not to be nervous. Why are you so scared? Is that so? Zhang Xiaofeng was a little confused. Could it be that he was scaring himself? Qin Feiyang patted Zhang Xiaofeng's shoulder and looked up at young Master Yun. He smiled and said, Come down and have a chat. Young Master Yun quivered and turned to escape. Only now did he realize that this was someone he could not afford to offend. Since you're already here, why go back? Qin Feiyang smiled and took a step forward. He instantly appeared in front of young Master Yun. What do you want to do? Young Master Yun slammed on the brakes and stopped. His face was filled with panic. Didn't I say that I just want to have a chat? Please, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Young Master Yun looked at the corpses of the guards and couldn't help but shiver. He smiled and said, Big brotherly, I still have something to do at home. Can we do it another day? What do you think? Qin Feiyang asked. Of course. I'll definitely come and apologize another day. Goodbye. Young Master Yun said flatteringly and then turned to flee in the other direction. Shua. Qin Feiyang took another step forward and stood in front of young Master Yun. His speed is so fast. Miss Celestial Immortal whispered. Is it fast? I didn't notice it. He's a small success divine lord. Young Master Yun is only an early success divine lord. It's normal for him to be faster than young Master Yun. Xiao Lu and the other girl said. Miss Celestial Immortal glanced at the two girls and didn't say anything. She continued to pay attention to Qin Feiyang. Chapter 2290. In the air. Young Master Yun was burning with anxiety. Looking at Qin Feiyang, he roared. I already said that I'll come and apologize another day. What else do you want? Do you know where my house is? Qin Feiyang laughed. Young Master Yun had the urge to curse. This was just a perfunctory sentence. What was there to take it seriously? However, he could only endure it and smile obsequiously. Look at me, I was so anxious that I forgot to ask, Big brother, where is your house? Qin Feiyang laughed. My house is in the underworld. What? Underworld? Young Master Yun was stunned. Yes. How about I send you to my house to take a look? Qin Feiyang looked at him playfully. No need, no need. Young Master Yun hurriedly waved his hand, and a chill could not help but emerge in his heart. Underworld? Didn't this mean that he was going to kill him? Qin Feiyang said. Even if you don't want to go, then don't talk nonsense, please. Young Master Yun flew downwards with a mournful face. Sigh. Why was he so unlucky? He clearly looked weak, But who would have thought that he was a devil that could not be provoked? Landing in the middle of the crowd, young Master Yun looked at Zhang Xiaofeng. Looking at Zhang Xiaofeng's miserable appearance, his heart felt a lot better. At least he had a companion. Qin Feiyong looked at the two of them and laughed. Then let's settle the score. What score? Young Master Yun was suspicious. You guys came to find trouble with me one after another, causing my heart and spirit to be seriously injured. You have to give me some compensation, Qin Feiyong said. So you want benefits? Young Master Yun muttered in his heart and smiled obsequiously. Of course, just say the word. Anything that could be settled with money was not a problem. Besides, his Yun family was so poor that they only had money. It didn't matter. Let's talk about you first. Qin Feiyong looked at Zhang Xiaofeng and said with a smile, I'm not going too far. You broke my 2 pots of immortal wine, so I'll compensate you 10 times the auction price. 10 times? Zhang Xiaofeng's expression stiffened. Let me calculate. I bid for it with 10 billion soul stones. 1 pot equals 1 billion. If it's 10 times, 2 pots would be 20 billion. In addition to the compensation for psychological damage, I'll charge you a total of 30 billion. Remember, these 30 billion are not divine crystals. They are soul stones. Qin Feiyong smiled. You call this not going overboard? Zhang Xiaofeng gritted his teeth and glared at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong turned a blind eye and turned to look at young Master Yun. Young Master Yun said with a flattering smile, Brother Li, I didn't break your immortal intoxication. There's no need to compensate so much. Don't worry. Listen to me slowly. When we were bidding for the celestial immortal intoxication, you repeatedly insulted me, causing me to feel very uncomfortable now. Let's count it as 10 billion here. Then, which is now, you brought so many people to find trouble with me. Fortunately, my strength is not bad. Otherwise, I would have died in your hands. Let's go by the head count. Let me see, you brought a total of, it seems to be 52 people. I'll give you a round number. Only 50 people, 1 billion each, added up to 50 billion. As for the rest, I'm a magnanimous person, so I won't count it with you. In other words, you only need to give me 60 billion as compensation. It's not much. I believe your Yun family must have it. Remember, it's also soul stones. Qin Feiyong smiled. What a devil. The people around couldn't help but mutter. How was this compensation? It was simply extortion. At this moment, young Master Yun's face was even uglier than if he had eaten feces. How could he calculate 60 billion? How could these guards be counted? And it was calculated by the head count. This was too outrageous. Besides, the death of these guards seemed to be his loss, wasn't it? Because they were his guards. By right, he should be the one to settle this account. Could he be more reasonable? What? Aren't you happy? Qin Feiyong looked at the two suspiciously. The two were about to speak. Qin Feiyong said again, if you don't want to, then I can only invite you to my house. Of course. The two hurriedly smiled. They were young and hadn't had enough fun. Who would want to go to the underworld? They had to agree first. As for whether they would pay in the end, it was not up to this person to decide. Straightforward. I like good children like you. Qin Feiyong laughed and then took out a brush, ink, paper and inkstone from the universe ring. Children? You don't seem to be that old. The two complained and then looked at Qin Feiyong suspiciously. Why did he take out a brush, ink, paper and inkstone? Qin Feiyong waved his hand and 4 pieces of paper spread out in the void. Then he grabbed the brush and waved it. Soon, small words appeared on the 4 pieces of paper. The general content was, Today I Zhang Xiaofeng owe Pai Lupi 30 billion soul stones. I will give it all tomorrow. Today I young Master Yun owe Pai Lupi 60 billion soul stones. I will give it all tomorrow. If you don't pay, I will give you my head. After writing, Qin Feiyong waved at the two and said with a smile, Come here and leave a bloody handprint. It's quite formal. The two muttered. Hurry up. Qin Feiyong urged impatiently. Okay. The two nodded and ran to Qin Feiyong's side. Young Master Yun was straightforward. He directly cut his palm and left a striking bloody handprint. But Zhang Xiaofeng was a little hesitant. What are you afraid of? It's just a piece of paper. So what if you sign it? I don't believe that he really dares to ask for it from us. Young Master Yun sneered secretly. That's true. Zhang Xiaofeng responded in his mind and immediately pressed the bloody handprint. This contract is made in 2 copies, one for each of us. By the way, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't take any chances because the consequences of going back on your word are very serious. Qin Feiyang said. No. The 2 hurriedly shook their heads. That's good. Qin Feiyang nodded and put away the 2 contracts. He waved his hand and said, "You can go now." When the 2 of them heard this, they immediately fled into the crowd, disappearing without a trace. How childish. Upstairs, Little Green looked at Qin Feiyang and mocked. Indeed. Does he think that he can make the Zhang family and the Yun family obediently hand over the soul stones with just a contract? Such a prestigious family is not the treasure pavilion. The spirit of the contract is worthless in their eyes. This person is still too inexperienced. Little Red also said. Then what do you think will happen if the Zhang family and the Yun family go back on their word? Miss Fairy asked. What else can he do? Stare. He still dares to go to the Zhang family and the Yun family to ask for it? If he really dares to go, I dare say that he will definitely not be able to return. Not only will he not return, I'm afraid that not even his bones will be left. The 2 girls said. Then let's wait and see. Let's see what method he will use to resolve this matter. Miss Fairy smiled. Zhang Xiaoyang looked at Qin Feiyang with admiration and said with a smile, Brotherly, you're really good. I admire you. It's nothing. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and asked, What are your plans next? Zhang Xiaoyang said, I'm going to continue looking for the celestial immortal wine. Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned and asked suspiciously, Why do you want the celestial immortal wine so much? Zhang Xiaoyang wanted to say something but hesitated. He seemed to be a little wary of this question. If you don't want to say it, then forget it. We'll meet again if fate wills it. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and turned to leave. He did not go to the Heaven Immortal Tower again. Looking at Qin Feiyang's back, Zhang Xiaoyang's eyes had a trace of struggle. In the end he tailed him all the way. Buzz. Soon. Qin Feiyang's image crystal suddenly rang. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Could it be Shen Qianshan and Chou Tianwei? This was because he had established a contract with the 2 of them in East Tomb. He looked around and saw a secluded alley. He directly walked in. Then, seeing that there was no one around, he entered the ancient castle. Where's my celestial immortal wine? Hua Yiho anxiously ran in front of him and shouted. Qin Feiyang directly ignored him and took out the image crystal. Outside, Zhang Xiaoyang also followed and entered the alley. But after entering the alley, he was immediately stunned. Where was he? In the ancient castle. At this moment, in the void in front of Qin Feiyang, there was a shadow. It was Shen Qianshan. Qin Feiyang said, I was just about to send you a message. Shen Qianshan asked, Do you want to ask about the fiend ancestor's situation? Qin Feiyang replied. Shen Qianshan said, I've investigated. There was indeed such a person in Heavenly Cloud Mountain, and he had a demonic dragon by his side. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Hua Yi glanced at him and frowned. Past is the main point, okay? Qin Feiyang was slightly stunned. Seemed to be true. Then he looked at Shen Qianshan suspiciously. Shen Qianshan hesitated and said, This might not be good news. You have to be mentally prepared. Qin Feiyang's heart sank. He said, Please speak. Shen Qianshan said, According to my secret investigation, the fiend ancestor and the demonic dragon were already dead a year ago. What? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The fiend ancestor was actually dead? Hori glanced at Qin Feiyang and asked, Old Shen, are you sure the information is correct? Yes. Shen Qianshan said. That's impossible. Dong Zhengyang said that people who have activated the 10 heaven-defying battle souls will not die so easily. Qin Feiyang lowered his head and muttered to himself. Shen Qianshan said, If this person is really important to you, then I can only say, please restrain your grief. How did he die? Qin Feiyang raised his head and looked at Shen Qianshan frowning. Shen Qianshan said, It is said that he went to the Tianluo Sea to train and died under the claws of sea beasts. Sea beasts? Qin Feiyong was stunned. The fiend ancestor had a heaven-defying divine artifact. How could a mere sea beast kill him? Moreover, whether it was the fiend ancestor's methods or brains, he had personally experienced them. How could he die in training? This was too absurd. But Shen Qianshan should not lie to him. What was going on? Could it be that the heaven-defying divine artifact had abandoned the fiend ancestor? Because only in this situation could the fiend ancestor die in training. Where is the Tianluo Sea? When he died, did anyone see it? Qin Feiyong asked. The Tianluo Sea is our Eastern Tomb's biggest forbidden area, just like the Sky Dragon Sea in your northern region. And when the fiend ancestor died, someone saw it with their own eyes, Shen Qianshan said. Who? Qin Feiyong asked. This person has already been killed by you. He is our Heavenly Cloud Mountain's law enforcement hallmaster, Shen Qianshan said. Her. This is too much of a coincidence. Qin Feiyong was speechless. Once this woman died, there would be no more clues. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.